Antiques Roadshow was the Barry Hurt of
Yes.
started it all.
Oh my god.
Triple Dipper.
Triple Dipper.
Hello, and welcome back to Band Yap. My name is Alexa Sanchez.
And I'm Jose Sanchez.
And we have an incredibly special guest with us here today. We have Luke McMillan. Hi, Luke.
Hey, how are you guys?
We are fantastic. We're very glad to have you on with us today.
Hey, Luke, can I have ask you a question?
That's what this whole podcast is.
Yes. We're going to yap. Who has better hair, Eric Whitacre or Luke McMillan?
Definitely Eric Whitacre.
He does have gorgeous hair.
Yeah, definitely.
You've thought about
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
did
about to
because
say.
every single time I've seen Luke, his hair is
nice
done
hair.
so well, and
Now he has
I
nice
know,
hair.
and it's just like it's always perfectly like one of those kind of things that if like the wind moves, it's not his hair is not. It's like I am not moving from this stone. It is so well groomed.
You seem like you have like a little bit of jealousy.
I do.
Okay.
Well, hey, Jose, I know a guy, so
Well, there's hope for you, Jose.
Yay. Well, so Luke, if you're a small school band director, we all know about you and your products and things like that. But could you tell us a little bit more about yourself, education, teaching experience, all those types of things?
Sure, yeah. And before we get started, thank you guys so much for doing this. This is a very valuable resource for small school band directors. I've really enjoyed listening to your podcast, listening to your guests. The majority of your guests have their bands have earned gold medals playing music that I wrote, and including multiple gold medalist bands and band directors. So it's really cool to hear those folks and their insights and just how intelligent they are. And so it's been really great, and I've enjoyed listening. And I really hope to see Zach Sims in a tiara sometime soon.
Yes.
it's pretty glorious.
We can help you with that.
Well,
I have a
and I'll
picture.
tell you this, look, like you and your writing actually gave me my first success as a head band director. And you probably don't remember this, but I specifically remember calling you and tracking down your phone number. I remember purchasing a show from you because I had taken over a job over at Wortham, Texas. And the show that I did was Eagle Mountain Adventure. And it was the first time that the kids had marched and played at the same time. And like the audience for that football game went silent and actually paid attention to the band. And I was all like, I got to get a hold of Luke McMillan and tell him the impact that he made on our home audience just with his music. So I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to drop in that tidbit because I actually went into your website looking for Eagle Mountain Adventure, but I think you kind of retired that one.
You know what? Sometimes old shows are like old clothing choices or hairstyles, and you look at what you did multiple years ago. It's like, what was I thinking? I'm really happy that you liked that show and had success with it. But yes, sometimes when a show gets, I'd like to think the longer I do this, the more I learn and the better I get. And I'm out at marching contest every Saturday in October, and the main reason, not only just to say hi to my clients and see their successes, but mainly to hear feedback. I spoke to a widely acclaimed composer at one point because I was thinking I don't have any formal training in composition, and I wanted to maybe learn something. I was sort of asking about grad schools and stuff, and this composer, I believe it was Brian Balmages, he said, don't go to grad school. The best education that you can receive is hearing your music played live. And so try to do that as much as you can. And so I get out and I learn things every Saturday. Like, oh, wow, that really worked well. Or like, probably shouldn't do that again. And so then you start to sort of, see things that work and see things that don't. And so, yeah, sometimes a show that I wrote 10 years ago, some of those are still played by lots of bands, but some of them are like, it's a lot of the things that I did in this show are hurting more than they're helping. So, but if someone wants an old show, it's always available. I never delete any file, and so it's always available. But
oh my goodness, what does that look like?
you
have like an extra terabyte worth of like space?
Probably more than that.
Yeah, I mean, a garage full of storage.
literally literally a terabyte, and it does well. Music notation files are pretty small, so it's the programs that take up a lot of space, but the files are actually pretty small. So no, I have hundreds and hundreds of files, but yeah, we tend to just to put the ones on the website that we think are the most helpful and as they currently stand.
So back to you. What tell us about your background, where you're from, all this kind of cool, interesting things we want to know about the beginnings of Luke McMillan.
Sure. So I live here in Abilene, Texas, and I grew up here. I went to Abilene Wiley ISD. It's a a community sort of on the outskirts of Abilene. Grew up there. I come from a long generation of Wiley graduate. I'm a fourth generation Wiley graduate. Both my parents and grandparents, great grandparents, that they all went to Wiley. So deep ties in the community. Grew up at Wiley and did band all the way through. Lewis Thornton was my first band director. And he was actually one of the founders of ATSSB. And ATSSB was founded in the original Abilene Wiley High School Band Hall.
Wow.
Ooh,
I
that's
did not know
historic.
that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lewis Thornton hosted, Kenneth Griffin and all those guys descended upon the high school band hall, which is now the junior high at Wiley.
So like what's happening is that all these band directors converged in the one location, and the seedling of Luke just happened, and he's now the small school band director, like
No,
marching band guy.
That was long before I was there, but yeah, Lewis Thornton was my band director, and then my senior year, gentleman and a man who's still a really great friend and mentor to me, Mike Lunny, came, and he was there my senior year, and made the ATSSB All-State Band. And then I went to the University of North Texas and
What
got
was your instrument, Luke?
Trumpet.
Okay.
What was my main instrument? I played with a couple of others on, depending. I actually played bass. I gig quite a bit on electric bass. I play in some jazz groups and some musicals, and I love doing that. So that's mainly what I gig on now. But I played trumpet throughout high school and college and every day with my kids when I was a teacher. But I went to University of North Texas in Denton. I got my undergrad from there. Played in the lab bands and basketball band, marching band, had a blast. And then I got a job at Wiley High School, my alma mater. I was an assistant there. Worked with Mike Lunny for 11 years. And I was an assistant there, loved it, had a great time. The staff, kids, parents were amazing. But pretty much as soon as I started teaching, I started writing on the side. And I just got so busy doing that, I sort of had to make a choice. And I sort of at that time, the 2014-15 school year was my last year to teach. And, around that time, ramping up to it, as I had 2 full-time jobs, and I sort of felt like that wasn't super healthy. And so, I mean, I honestly considered just stopping writing at all. It's like, I just need to focus on teaching. I'm staying up until 1 or 2 a.m. writing music. I thought about dropping that and just teaching because I was at a crossroads. I had to pick one. But ultimately I decided on the one that, I can pick my own schedule. I can work when I want. And stuff like that. So I chose to hang it up at Wiley. Still kept in contact with those guys. Still wrote their shows for several years. Still went out there and helped out. But yeah, hung it up at that point, and I've been doing this full time ever since.
Yeah, Mike Lunny is like a band director legend.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not just in West Texas, but we're friends with some people out in Littlefield, Bonnie Anderson,
Mhm.
and I love her to death. And just like a whole bunch of those people, Brian Tillman, and you say the word Mike and they say Lunny. It is like that much. And so
yeah, he's the band whisperer. He can go and clinic any band and just work wonders. He's amazing. Has such a great ear, such a great mind, such great instincts with band sounds, and yeah, he's pretty incredible.
Well, and anytime I've interacted with him or even just seen him, he just seems like the most inviting person.
Oh yeah,
I'm just I can see that he could probably get upset, but that's not where he lives. He lives in like happy and jolly. And it's just like one of those guys like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like Robert Vedder. Have you ever met Bob?
Oh yeah, I know Bob well. One of the bands that I play bass in. I play in a big band in San Angelo, and when Bob was at Reagan County, he played in the big band, and so I've known Bob for a long time.
I want to see that. I want to see Bob Vedder play in a big band. But Bob is everybody's grandfather.
Yes.
I don't care what anybody says. That is everybody's like grandfather. I'm like surprised he's like, you want a butterscotch?
I would take a butterscotch.
mean, what's your favorite hard candy?
Favorite hard candy? Man, honestly, I'm a chocolate guy. Like
Oh.
We ask the hard hitting questions here.
Yes.
yeah, no. I'm a chocolate guy. It has to be chocolate. I'm not really like a fruity candy type
So
person.
are you talking about like the chocolate symphony bars, the whatchamacallits?
Dude, if we want to get real right now, a Reese's Fast Break
Oh,
is the ultimate. And
yeah, that's
sometimes those are hit or miss at gas stations.
Yes.
And so I sort of have my route, as I'm driving to little bitty towns around Abilene.
that's when you know you have like
That's right.
things pinned.
If I can find my gas station that has fast breaks. And of course I have my blacklist. She was like, oh no, they don't have fast breaks. I'm going to keep on going.
This all sips is dead to me.
That's right.
I'm a Twix person, but as like I like Twix. Anything that's like my go-to, just because like I like caramel.
I feel like you bring up the hard candy to slight me in some way.
No, I like hard candy. I like butterscotch, but if you say like butterscotch or
I like hard candy, and so Jose gives me a hard time about it because I'm basically a grandma. I insisted that he buy me some for Christmas, and he didn't, and so
and then I ordered.
He
them
ordered
the next
it
day.
post.
Are you a cat or dog person?
Neither.
Neither. Oh,
Yeah.
all right. End of podcast. Bye.
If I had to make a choice, I'd choose a cat because they're pretty chill. But no, man, I'll be honest. Like I used to have a plant in my studio, and that was too much responsibility. So, like, if that tells you anything, like I can, So yeah.
I mean, other than me and the children, Alexa does not keep plants alive.
And the dogs. We have dogs too.
Yeah, they kind of self-serve.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, like, when I contacted you, you were in your last few years of
What year
band
was that?
director. That was like 2012,
It could
2013.
have been 2012. That's when we started dating. And
Yeah.
you were,
9, 10. Yeah, it was 2012.
Mhm.
So, wow, that was, you
13
were
years ago.
really, really busy at that point.
Yeah, 100%. And it was hard. That's why eventually I had to make a choice. I just couldn't do them both. And it's kind of scary, thinking about health insurance and retirement and stuff like that. But it was untenable, and I just had to make a choice. But yeah, at that point, I would have been going pretty crazy. When I first started writing music, I knew I wanted to do that, but I sort of looked at it as like something to keep me busy over the summer to, keep me off the streets and keep me out of trouble.
The hard-hitting streets of Abilene.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I never envisioned it getting to like a year-round thing like it is now, but eventually it did. So I had to make a choice.
I think I know why we actually gravitated towards Luke and our podcast. It's because our marketing is the same. Our color scheme is the same.
Our color scheme is indeed the same.
Yeah, going by your Team A booth, I was like, I feel so at home.
Yeah. We need to just set up an extension of Luke's booth. We'll just put some mics there.
Everyone can nap.
Actually, so the couches, they're made by Lovesac, and they're
okay,
modular.
yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we got them, is because they can transport easily.
Oh,
But
that
they
makes
can
so
come
much
apart.
sense.
Yeah, they can come apart into pieces, and lots of people, they're not really made for trade shows, but we sort of made it work. But yeah, they come apart into blocks, and you can position them any way you want in your house, like an L shape or whatever you want, like all the sides and the backs comes off.
Your booth always seems so inviting because every time we walk by it, there's like at least 6 people.
I was scared to
chilling on
go
the
talk to
couches.
Luke when we walked by his booth because there was a lot of people hanging
Yeah,
out there.
there was. And so, and I told her, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to shoot my shot and go talk to Luke. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And
Well, so the whole reason for the couches, And if anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, you can go to our Instagram account and see pictures of the
Yeah.
booth. But, when we first started out, we just had the listening table, and to where, we wanted people to come up and listen to shows if they wanted stuff like that. But our booth sort of became a destination for small school
Oh
directors.
yeah, for sure.
Because if in what's really interesting, if you hang out at the booth all day, which we do, you'll see like different contingent, like, it's like, oh, the San Angelo folks are here. And then like an hour later, oh, the Waco folks are here. Oh, the Panhandle folks are here, and it's like, you'll see different contingent because like they'll see someone, oh, hey, how's it going? And they'll come and talk, but we realized we needed the couch set up because there would be people who wanted to sit and listen to shows. Well, there's people just sitting and talking. And I was like, and that's great. We want them to be there, but people who aren't really interested in listening, they just want to sit and congregate and talk. And so I'm like, you know what, we need an area for those because we don't want to shoo them away. We want you guys to come and hang out. And so we got a whole couch set up for like, if you're just here to chill, here's the best chill place on the entire exhibit hall. If you want to listen to music, then here's where you can do that.
What you need to do, the next step is a margarita machine.
It is on the list.
No, you would want to spike in business. The margarita machine will do it. We've been trying to get one in the teacher's lounge for years.
No.
So okay, so small school, you're doing the thing. You decide to like, okay, I'm going to step back, create your, and like a lot of people don't realize that, or they forget that. Like when you step out like that, that is a huge risk. And so like, who was like somebody that you leaned on in that process?
So I had clients in the beginning tell me like, man, you could do this full time. When I'm like, no, there's no way. Like there's so many factors. Like it's not, it can't happen. It's not going to happen. But they just kept on saying, no, I really think that you could do this. And eventually I just listened to him. One of my greatest influences is actually a band parent of mine who owns, his name's Scott Center. He owns a real estate company here in town. I taught both of his kids, and I leaned on him a lot just because he owns a business and he's done the thing before. And being in the world that I was in, you don't really talk to a lot of people like that, and so just having access to someone like that, and he introduced me to other people, and just having someone like that to lean on to say like, okay, so how does this, how would you handle this? How does this whole thing work? He was instrumental, no pun intended, in my growth as a business person and like venturing into that world.
Yeah, I mean that's because a lot of people don't talk about like, hey, I'm going to start going into this type of thing, but like you said, like the insurance thing and like really kind of depending on yourself, and that's about it. Like it is you, it is your family, and it is you're putting a lot of things on the line for a passion that you have, and that I think that's ultimately what makes you as successful as you are is that you put your eggs in that basket and you like had a great support system. So like that really does help, but that's a scary thing. It's almost like a brand new band director becoming an only band director at a school. It's like, oh, I'm by myself now, and which like John Schreiber. I mean, he was by himself over at Valley Mills, and he started with your products. Am I right about that? Same thing with Brian Sowers.
Yeah.
Probably Zach Sims. Me, I'm not that good, but it's okay. Me, but like so many other people.
You played good music though.
Yeah, I mean, he like seriously, your product got Wortham their first sweepstakes since 1996, and that was 2012. So there was quite a distance. So making sure you have the right product and the right people in the right places, that helps.
Yeah, exactly. And I did what a lot of other people in my position do, which is like I took on a few more things when I made the transition, just for sort of a sense of security. Like I'd never written drill before, but I was like, you know what? As I make this transition, I'm gonna start writing drill. And so I did that. I found out really quickly that as far as writing drill, I was terrible at it and I hated it. So that didn't last very long. And the main thing, I realized that it was taking me away from music. I realized like I have this thing that I love doing, and people are using my services, like I need to focus on that. And so the drill thing lasted a couple of years, and I realized I'm fine. And so I focused just solely on music and haven't turned back.
So, Luke, when you started writing, and you were still teaching, how did you get connected with people who started using what you were putting out?
So I guess this will take me back to, my very first show and how that got started and how that spread from there. So my very first year at Wiley, we were at a football game, and so the Beatles is my favorite band of all time. And this is my very first year, and I said to Mike Lenny, "You know what? We should play a Beatles show. That would be really fun." And I follow that up with, and I could arrange it. And he was dumb enough to say, "Sure." And even though I had never arranged a marching band show before, but he trusted me, and I wrote it, and it was awful. I still have that file on my computer, by the way. I told you I never delete anything. I still have that show.
Oh, we should put
Um,
that out to the public. Just like, hey, for one day only.
yeah, exactly. And so there was what I only did what I knew to do with this show when I got it done, and that's show it to other people and ask their advice. And like, what do you think about this? And one of the gentlemen that I asked advice, he was the band director here at McMurray at the time. His name's Chris Neal, and Chris wrote drill for some of the schools around this area. And he said, "Man, this is really good. Would you consider doing this for other schools?" And I was like, I guess, sure. And that same summer, like I wrote sort of like a tune or two. And then the next summer, I think I wrote one maybe show, a couple of shows, something like that. And then just sort of around here. And that's actually how I got into writing for pretty much just small schools, is because like around Abilene, you have to drive 3 hours pretty much any way to get to a decent sized town. And so that just happens to be who's around here. And, I worked for this small school, and then this other small school found out about me. And they're like, "Oh, they were at a football game. Oh, who wrote your show?" And so that's how it happened, is that's just who was close to me at the time. Um,
Well, that also says a lot about how you as a person, and I think this is a fault of a lot of band directors, um, getting our feelings hurt with the product that we're putting out. Like, we are all very passionate about the things that we do and the things that we create.
Are you targeting me right now?
I'm not. No, I'm just looking at you. Jeez. But like the fact that you were able to put yourself out there and go like, please tear this apart. And I mean, look at what your product is and how much you've grown in the business and the culture that you've created within all the things that you're doing. And it starts with going like, I need help. And it's okay that I need help. Please tell me how I'm doing things incorrectly so I can make them better. And I think just a lot of directors have their guards up about
Yes,
that.
they do.
Yeah, sure. Well, and still, like, I still have techniques that I use today because of feedback from band director. I always, I always love to hear that feedback. Like you mentioned Brian Tillman earlier, he was always really great. We would sort of have a post-season, uh, let's evaluate what worked, what didn't. And he will always tell me, yeah, we fought this little section all season, or this thing I had to simplify because it just never worked. And I love learning about those things. I sort of have to disconnect myself. You meant that, or you said that some people get in their feels about things, and I sort of have to disconnect from that and say, hey, this is a tool that I'm making, just like you design a hammer for a roofer or something like that. This is a tool for people to be successful with, and so you can't get too like in your feelings about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been guilty of that. I'm like, don't talk about my band. It's like as soon as I got rid of that mentality, I think I became a much better educator and probably just a better person because that's just like some things you got to just let roll off. Um, Coming back to something, people in East Texas want to know: are there trees in Abilene?
There are mesquite trees.
There are mesquite trees.
Are you live streaming this right now?
No,
Oh, I was.
no, I just like the one point.
It's cool though.
Yeah, I would. He was like, "Oh my god, please don't." Uh, but like talking to Brian Sowers thought one part of Fort Worth was West Texas. And he's like, "Nah, buddy, there's a whole lot more and a whole lot less."
What did he say, that anything past Mesquite was West Texas?
West Texas, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Pretty
just
much,
like,
yeah. Trees wise, he's right. No, there's some mesquite trees that they're pretty small. They don't get too high. There's a few pecans here and there, but no, you get even further west. Like I don't know, Colorado City, Big Spring. It's pretty much like flat desert, but there's a few sporadic trees in Abilene.
is there like a tumbleweed situation out there?
I have seen a real life tumbleweed blowing across the road. Yes.
Okay. W I saw my first one going out to do a region clinic, and I was all like, "This isn't real life. I just saw a tumbleweed."
I remember that. I
Yeah.
remember you telling me
I was
that.
like, "That was the weirdest thing," because, for a lot of us, that's just like a myth. That's just like something that doesn't happen, and then you see one. If you, like, live in Lubbock or somewhere out there, they become real.
Yeah. Uh,
It's just like
ar-
it's like a
Armadillos
jackalope.
are real too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a jackalope. Don't you wish jackalopes I wish were real.
Luke is secluded in his beautiful
Yeah.
studio, but I could throw something at you.
Shh. I, I,
So
I won't say.
Okay. Thank you.
so okay, so you have all this support, all this mentorship, and you go full throttle. Um, so what was the next big step in order to get things like even bigger than what they were becoming?
Well, I would say the next big step was, at the time, making that transition, I was basically taking any job that I could, like I said, drill and any arranging for, concert band or, jazz band or whatever. I was taking anything that I could. And I eventually made a decision to where, you know what? I just want to do small school marching band music because like I felt like that's where I was the biggest help to bands. There's lots of great concert band composers out there, lots of great drill writers. Um, but I felt like that was my most helpful avenue, and so I decided to ditch everything else. And I changed the wording on my website, et cetera, to where like this is all we do. We just do small school marching band. And actually, I was writing for some 5As and 6As at the time, and I let them go. I said, hey, this isn't what I'm doing anymore, and just so I could focus on the small school thing. So that was sort of the next big step, is to go all in on that and sort of make that commitment. Um, and the rest is kind of history.
So what made just band in general special to you, and why you devoted like your whole entire life to it?
You know, Probably similar to a lot of folks in this industry. When I was growing up, I never really felt like I had a place, and I wasn't a sports kid. I didn't like, in small towns. In Wiley, it's getting bigger. It's a 5A now, but when my parents went there, especially, it was on a dirt road out in the middle of nowhere, and so I went there when it was sort of making that transition. It was still very much a small town feel. Yeah, I didn't do FFA. I didn't show calves. I didn't play sports, and I think with bands something just really clicked, and I found my people, and I found my place, and felt like that all through middle school and high school, and so I just knew that this had made an impact on me, and so I wanted to continue down that road.
Yeah, what year did you make All-State?
1999.
Oh, so was that near the inaugural year of that, or was not the inaugural year?
I think that was like 94 was the first year of ATSSB. I think that sounds right. And so, yeah, this was 1999.
Yeah, so you performed in the Scottish Rite.
I did. I
So
did.
we're all gonna have to get checked for cancer.
What
Everyone
is
that
the thing
performed.
there? The asbestos or
Yeah,
the
the
okay.
Asbestos Man. Yeah, that place. It was a beautiful auditorium. I thought the ceiling was gorgeous, but like, you want to talk about a haunted facility? That place was sketch.
Yeah, it was pretty old, but it was a great experience. Colonel Bourgeois was the conductor that year.
Ooh.
Ooh, yeah.
Um, Trisha Burrell, who is the assistant at Abernathy, she was in that same All-State band. I didn't realize that until like about a year ago. I was going through the program at my parents' house that I found, and I saw, oh, hey, that's Trisha. And so next time I saw her at a region thing, I told her. But yeah, good times, great experience.
Well, so there's been like a development since our last podcast with Zach Sims that is kind of weird, and I don't have
Oh.
any like recollection of it. Recollection?
Recollection.
That one, words are hard. That Zach Sims and I might have been roommates at the All-State band
Oh my
and
God.
his first year, and I don't remember that. Like I have
I'm
no
kind of dumbfounded as to how you could not remember
I
that. And
I
not you alone, but also Zach.
well, there's like 20 years between then and now, but 20, yeah, 20 years. So, but like, I remember my junior year because we were all tuba players, so we were all stupid. But like, Zach was like, "Oh, I think we might." I go, "I remember a tuba player because we're from the same area south and South River." And he was just like, "I remember like rooming with the tuba player, and he was Hispanic, and he was very vocal." And I'm like, "Oh, that might have been me." I go,
And I hated that guy.
that guy sucked. So I was like, I'm sorry if I ruffled your feathers back then, man. I'm sorry. And so, like, it's just like a weird coincidence of how all that stuff kind of happened. Like Wiley Gore and I we were all in the same band all at the same time. It was just like weird, but you know, it's
So what Wiley Gore is a Wiley graduate.
yes.
He was like I grew up with him, ran a couple of the same circles. He was like an 8th grader when I was a senior, I think.
See, it's a very small world. But that was just like weird when he texted me. He goes, "I think we were roommates over at Allstate," and I was like, "That is
That's weird.
that doesn't make me fit. That does not make me give the butterflies. It just so okay. So so you start building, and then I tell us about your relationship with Barry Hurt.
Yeah, what a great human being, great person, great teacher, great writer. So my relationship with Barry Hurt. So I first ran across him. He probably doesn't remember this, but and I don't know, you know if I met him at the time. He came into town to do a region band clinic in like 2006 or seven, and we sort of chatted. But I wasn't really writing much at the time, so I don't really think he probably remembered me. The next interaction was when I was writing and stuff, and I went up to him at his booth at either TBA or TMEA and just wanted to talk to him and introduce myself. And I walk up and I'm getting ready to say, "Hi, I'm Luke McMillan." And he just immediately just starts talking like we're best friends. And my first thought was like, "Oh my gosh, he knows who I am." Like I I've arrived. Like Barry Hurt like actually knows who I am. And he was saying like, "Oh yeah, I really enjoy your music and I've heard it a lot." It's like, "Oh my gosh." Um that would have been 2012 or 13ish, something like that. And so yeah, we just always kept in contact. We'd hang out at state marching contests, stuff like that. And then I went to a marching contest in San Angelo. This would have been fall of I don't know, fall of 13 or 14 maybe. And he said to me, "Hey, so I want to run something by you." He said, I I retired from band directing because I didn't want a job anymore. This whole arranging thing and selling these shows, it's getting to be a job. And he's like, one of these days I'm not really going to do it anymore. He's like, I would like my music to keep on being played, but he's like, my kids don't really want to take over the business. Um, is that something that you would be interested in like overseeing? Yeah, sure. Um, yeah, if that's what you want, then yeah, I'd be happy to do that for you. And so about a year later, he told me, he's like, we're ready to do it. If you are." And I said, sure. And so then I got to learn about what it's like buying a business and how way more complicated it is than you would think. And that whole process took about a year. Um, and it was, I guess, very beginning of 2017, like February 2017, where it was all done. And I owned his catalog of music because That's what he wanted to do. He asked me to do it. I agreed. It wasn't like a hostile takeover or anything like that. Um, but it's just something that he wanted to do and he asked me to do, and I obliged.
Yeah. So actually, he was at your booth at Team EA, wasn't
Oh
he?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he comes pretty much every year, and when I'm getting my booth badges, I'll always call him. Hey, are you coming to Team EA? Do I need to get you a badge? And so yeah, he'll come and he'll help out. Somebody come. Hey, I'm looking for a show that's sort of between this and this. And Barry's like, yeah, yeah. Let me. I wrote this for this band, and so it's great. He comes and helps and talks, and there's people all over the state that want to come and see him, and so they sit and just talk, and we always love seeing him and hanging out with him.
So for the people that know, the young folk who don't know, Barry Hurt was like really the first person to specialize in small school music and marching shows. So where was he at as a band director? Because I know he was also out in West Texas.
Yeah, he was at Plainview for a long. That's where he retired from. He retired from Plainview. Before that, he was at Sundown. He was at Sundown for a long time. Won several state championships at Sundown.
Yeah, no big program. Yeah, just
Yeah, yeah,
Sundown.
yeah, exactly. So that's where he taught, and that just came from he just couldn't find music that worked for what he needed, and so he's like, "Oh, I'll just write it," and so he did, and he sort of stumbled upon that whole thing too, because Banyard, he's sort of in the same boat, in Lubbock, it's sort of the same thing as Abilene. There's you you have to drive a while to get to the next big
Okay,
big town.
what is the longest trip you've taken on a bus?
Oh man, 4-hour bus trips back at like Wiley. That wasn't uncommon because the football team was so good. No other coaches would want to play us in the preseason. So I remember going to away games in like Austin area from
Whoa.
Abilene. For this is for a preseason game, and then playoffs is a completely different story. Because the Wiley football team would always go super deep in the playoffs. But Barry was sort of in that situation, so just bands around him be like, "Oh, hey, that show that you wrote for Sundown back, could we play that?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, I guess." And he just give it to him. And then when he retired, he's like, "Yeah, I wonder if I could make a business out of this." And so he did. Um, and so that's how that went down.
So what would you say his impact on small school was, and kind of the development of like what you started doing?
Oh, his impact was invaluable. It with small schools, it's all about achievement. That's where I always start. And as far as writing a show, producing a show, and Barry understood that. And like, if there's literally no other place where you can get this music, and anything else is it's either too hard or it doesn't work properly on a marching field. There's not the pacing or the impacts that you need. Like I said, he was pretty much the first one to do that and to sort of start that wheel in motion of like, this is, small school marching bands play music that was written for a small school marching band. It paved the way for all of us to do what we.
Yeah, because I graduated from a 3A school back then, now 4A. Think the population is like barely over 600 in the high school. But I remember playing box shows all the time. And there's nothing wrong with box shows, but like there's a difference between playing James Bond out of the Tom Wallace catalog versus playing uh, you know, the planets out of a Barry Hurt catalog that has been custom to the needs of your band.
I didn't know that existed like when I was in high school because all of our arrangements were like, I don't, not Arrangers Publishing, but like something, like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that people like were out buying like Barry Hurt shows. And like, why would I know that as a high school student? I don't know. But that is always what we played. It was like, okay, we're playing these 3 tunes from this, and that's just how it was.
And that worked well for a long time. But then, we start to get into how pacing is evolving, and what the bigger schools are doing as far as the arc of a marching band show and how that works, and that started to trickle down to smaller schools. And So yeah, the published stuff worked great for a long time. I played those when I was in high school. Um, but then there just came a point to where, like, we're going to play something specifically written for this purpose, and not that can double as a stand tune, but like this is just a marching show.
What's your favorite Beatles tune?
My favorite Beatles tune. Oh man. Blackbird.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I can get down with
What's
that.
yours?
Eleanor Rigby.
Oh,
Mm.
that's fitting.
Yeah. Our daughter's name is Eleanor.
Oh, okay.
I didn't really think of the Beatles when we picked her name. That was
No,
just the
neither
only
did I.
one
But
we
I
decided
don't
on,
know.
but
There's just something about Eleanor
that's a good
Rigby
song.
that I just like really enjoy. I think it's because it's not like a lot of the rest of
I
their
went through a
stuff.
Beatles era in high school with like that was when that was the sweet in between like ruining your family computer with LimeWire and like but like it was in the weird in
Stir
between
lime,
when you
like
MP3 players but you didn't really know how to put music on it. You know what I mean?
yes.
Okay, like iPods were introduced like when I was in I guess
Were
late
you an
middle
iPod
school,
or
high
a
school.
Zune person?
I had an iPod.
Does anybody remember Zunes?
Yes, my friend had one in middle school. I think it was middle school. But
Luke, were you an iPod or a Zune person?
I don't think I ever had a Zune. I think I had an iPod for as long as yeah.
did you have one
Always iPods.
A Zune?
or either?
No, I was too poor to
Yeah, I was
own
about to say
either.
that doesn't track for you. But there was like a release when I was like super into the Beatles where you could buy their entire
Album,
catalog
yeah.
on an USB drive. It wasn't like a streaming thing. It was like you had to purchase this. I don't even know how much it cost. It was like $100 or maybe more than that. I don't know. But it was a USB
So what are your
drive of
feelings
music.
about Yoko Ono?
You know what? I don't think I'm prepared for that question.
Wow,
That's
so
right.
you can write that one in.
Yeah. Well, so like
Okay. This is what I'll say. Here's my hot take. I think the Beatles probably would have imploded without her.
Huh. All right. I whenever we have band couples, like kids who are dating inside the band, I'm like, I would tell them, I go, first of all, don't be Yoko. And they're like, who's Yoko? I'm like,
then you have to give them a history lesson.
Yeah, then we have to do a history. I'm like, can we get some culture, please? Like Yoko Ono, who's Yoko Ono? I'm like, the Beatles. They're like, oh, I'm like, she
Who?
broke up the band. So like when kids break up inside the band, our band program, I'm like, don't break up the band, Yoko.
Yeah.
All the time.
That's
All
fair.
the time. It's like, what are we doing? I don't know. I went through a Queen era.
I also went through a Queen era right about the same time, but I went through my Queen era before I went through my Beatles era.
I love Queen.
I like both of them.
Yes.
They're both.
I mean, if you've seen Wayne's World and you don't get down on the Bohemian Rhapsody, we have problems.
Yeah, that's fair.
Those people need to go away.
My favorite, I think, Beatles song, thanks for asking, I think it's actually Ticket to Ride. Like, that's a more, like, that's a different version of the Beatles. But
I couldn't get into the Sgt.
Pepper?
Yeah, I can't. That is too psychedelic for me.
They have some cool songs.
Oh, there's cool, but I also kind of go like, what is happening?
That's fair.
It's a little too much for me.
What's the movie?
They have a movie.
Well, not the Sgt. Pepper's movie.
Are you talking about Across the Universe?
Yes, Across the Universe. That was like you know how you get the high school kids in their feels?
Yes.
That was my high school feels kid movie, Across the Universe.
I feel like Luke watched Drumline all the time.
Just once.
Just once.
Just once.
So I did watch. So what got me into the Beatles? I was into music. I played bass in garage bands. I never listened to the Beatles. But my freshman year of high school, I remember I was like sick with the flu and stayed home for like 4 days. And during that time, they released a series of documentaries called the Beatles Anthology. And it was like a 3 or 4 part documentary. And I became obsessed with the Beatles after watching that, and have been ever since. So that moment is what got me into the Beatles.
I think I could listen to the Beatles almost at any point in time on any day, just because like they have such a wide range. And
For
that's
sure.
like what I definitely appreciate about them. You know, I'm gonna listen to the Beatles on the way to work tomorrow.
You should.
Like I need to find my
It's
happy
like
space.
it's almost like a palate cleanser.
Yeah. We have UIL contest and sight reading next week.
Mm.
And so therefore, like the anxiety's growing day by day. So I need something to help ground me just a little bit more.
Yeah, you can listen to some Maxwell's Silver Hammer or something.
That's a fun one.
Well, the content of it is
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But it's a fun song. I think the juxtaposition is what does it, you know?
So what makes small schools special to you?
Oh, well, that's sort of how I grew up. You know, when I was at Wiley, it still had that small school feel, and so um, that's really just sort of how I grew up, and just going out to these schools and seeing how passionate these students are and how amazing these directors are. It's such a good feeling, you know, as as you know, it's so cool to see kids in small schools because they participate in so much. And you know, they're not just band kids. They're doing everything at their schools, you know, especially like when I go out to my 1A schools. You know, these kids are doing literally everything in their school. The trumpet soloist is also the quarterback, is also the center on the basketball team. And uh and so I just really love just the environment and the energy that that you see with small schools, and it's just it's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, like right now, so we're prepping. I'm gonna be missing kids on Friday because our whole entire or majority of our tennis team is like band kids, and
Hmm.
so they're gonna be missing rehearsal. Today we
Hmm.
were missing a slew of kids for a Stuco
Student council,
convention,
yeah.
and then next week there's something else that's
I don't know,
happening.
there's track like all the time and there's
Softball. We had
softball,
to organize a softball thing just
there's
recently.
junior high, tennis, track, all the same things except for softball. But
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing how well, and those kids, they just they become better adults because they figure out how to one compromise and two just figure out how to operate a planner and a schedule.
well, some of them do.
Some of them never learn, but that's a whole nother animal. So,
Hmm.
okay, so who was your first state marching band contender?
First state marching band contender. You mean making state?
Yeah, sure.
Crane High School. I still work with Crane to this day. I've written custom shows for Crane pretty much every year since 2011, I think. Daniel Todd was the band director there for a long time. Yeah, starting in around then, that they were a perennial state marching contest participant for decades now, and he brought me on in the early 2010s. And well, yeah, I was gonna say, did Wiley make it before that? No, I think the first time Wiley made it with my music was 2014. So yeah, it would have definitely been Crane, and then Sundown when Mike Glaze was there. Not long after that, um, and then just sort of went from there.
Yeah. So, I mean, what was that feeling like knowing that your music had gotten to the quote unquote the pinnacle of the marching arts?
Well, at that time, just getting there wasn't good enough. Like I felt a lot of pressure to do it right, to where when they got there, they did well. You know, um, and so I again, the first time I started writing um, for state qualifying bands, I started sending it out to other band directors who I knew that had done that before, and like, could you give me any feedback? What should I change? Because I wanted to make sure that I got it right, and they hired me again. So it was really exciting, but it was sort of nerve wracking at that time too. That like, please, like, because like any creative person, we have imposter syndrome, and I honestly think like when have you guys ever seen like the arc of like how a creative process works? Like it starts like, oh man, this is going to be great, and then there's a little dip, and then
Yeah.
at the end, it's like, this is the best thing in the world. Pretty much any show when I'm in the middle of it, especially like the middle of the opener, I'm like, you know what? This is the show that everybody's going to find out. I have no idea what I'm doing. This is the one. This is the straw that's going to break the camel's back. And so we all have that feeling at some point, but I think that was heightened at that time. It's like, crap, like I've never really done this before. And so just me being, nervous about it doing well and hoping that I didn't, get the band director ostracized from their community and school was my main goal. Just like, don't screw it up.
Yeah. Well, that's only if you play the national anthem in a minor key.
Oh my
That's when
goodness.
you get run out of town.
Oh my goodness.
Or in 4/4.
Oh, we don't talk about that. That hits too close to home.
Oh, really close to home.
Mhm.
I mean, so like how I mean, so that was a great I can only imagine what that felt like because like you're putting out and this is something that I have said to people that I've hired to write shows or drill or whatever is that like one, I want to like yes, you want to give me good product because I'll come back to you. But also at the same time, me as a director, I want to do right by your product. And I think if more directors took a viewpoint of also that, then it becomes a symbiotic relationship where, I am doing right by your product and you're doing right by me. And that's how we can better enhance our products together.
In Jose, what a lot of directors don't realize, and we try to communicate, but just a lot of them don't know, is like I'm here to help through the whole season. Like I want to collaborate with my clients. Like I want to see recordings or hear recordings. I want to see videos. I want to be a part of this process. And a lot of times directors, I'll tell them that, I'll be like, well, I just didn't want to bother you. It's like, no, no, no. Like this is my full-time job in the fall is to make sure that my clients are in the best success position to succeed, that they do as best as they can. And like my strength is like you guys are good at the band directory stuff, like the tuning and the note lengths and the all that kind of stuff. I like zooming out and seeing the entire thing. Like, hold on, why are you coming on the field like that? What's your thought process? Like seeing the whole thing to where this entire presentation from the time the first kid steps on the field or the last kid steps off, like this is professional, it's sophisticated, we're making a good impression. And so I love being a part of that process and from as early in the season as possible. Um, and so I really love doing it. And that's such a big part of, for the directors that feel like, well, we want to do a great job. It's like, well, involve me. Like that's what I do. And I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. It, and I'm gonna say something that might be a little controversial. I'm just gonna
You've
put a
never
word in.
done that
I
before.
never. But and I've told this story before that I grew up very not I don't want to say underprivileged, but I grew up in kind of in a rough situation and not to kind of trauma dump, but like I remember like for us to take baths with warm water, we would have to boil pots of water and take it to our bathtub. That's just the way thing that worked. And I asked my dad one day, like, why, we're poor. He goes, son, you might be poor, or we might not have the most money, but because you're poor doesn't mean you have to be dirty. And like that's the way I kind of think about certain things and the way I approach the small school. Just because we're small doesn't mean that we can't do things that are impressive
Or strive for
or
excellence.
strive for excellence. And we get into our minds of like we're just such and such, and that's like such a stereotypical thing for people to do.
That's your
They're-
number one pet
yeah,
peeve.
oh, I hate it. Well, we're such and such, so nobody can ever take us seriously. No, stop it. Stop it. Just be, and I think that's kind of one of the like benefits. So like having somebody like you and like Barry who specialize in small school, it takes away the ability to somebody say, well, we're just a small school. No, you're not just a small school. You can excel for excellence while being a small school. Good is good in a story.
Jose, that's so important what you just said. And I have been on a crusade to if I can do one thing in this, but there's lots of great people, lots of great arrangers. But what's important to me is taking the design trends that larger schools employ and trying to figure out how can we do that with small schools. Maybe we can't play as high or as fast or as loud, but most of the design principles that they use, we can do those. I started a few years ago going to BOA Grand Nationals every year just to watch and get ideas because as even like as recent as maybe like 5 to 7 years ago, take like the 2A class, the medalists in 2A. That was a completely different thing than the 4As, 5As, and 6As were doing, right? Like we got away with this, like sort of like not super modern. It was clean, very very clean, but it's like the style you could get away with, um, sort of maybe looking a little bit outdated as long as it was clean, compared to some of the bigger groups. And I was like, hold on, and that's not knocking those groups because there's some, like incredible bands, incredible teaching going on, super clean bands. But from a design standpoint, it's like we can do the same things that the bigger schools can do. Maybe not as high and fast as loud. Maybe not as long of a show. Maybe not as many sets. But we can use some of the same principles. And you, and I encourage my clients to take risks and do that. Started working with 1As on moving props during a show. That had never happened before. you know, like stuff like that. And now you look at the 2As that are meddling, and it's like this is more of a characteristic style of a modern core style marching band, and that's what I love doing is encouraging those guys like no you can do this, you can employ some electronics, you can use some prop and stuff like that to where we don't have to be like that's cute, you guys are doing your thing, we're going to do this other thing. No, we can do all that too. And so that's sort of the crusade that I'm on.
Yeah. It's just like you have to commit to. I mean, I'm going to be honest. There for a long time, I was also, and my former assistant Victor Garza, he got me out of that mentality, like because I was very much march clean, play clean. But there's
That
just
should be
yeah. I
enough.
mean,
Yeah,
that should
that
be
was
enough. And honestly, like that's the way I was. But like there is so much more to it, and not just the pageantry, but the overall like connection with the audience that sometimes gets lost in what we do. And it's just like what kind of impact, and this is something I would tell our kids all the time, what kind of impact are you making on the people who are listening to you visually and musically? So what's the guy who has been directing all the A24 movies?
Oh, I wanted to say Jordan Peele. That's not it.
No, great director. Do you have a favorite horror movie?
I don't watch movies.
You don't watch movies?
No, I don't.
Oh,
I'll watch a documentary, but yeah, I have a mental, if it didn't really happen, I have a mental block.
That's how I am with books. People think that I'm strange. I don't do fiction. I
yeah.
just can't.
So like, how do you? So there's a mini series about Chernobyl, but it's like it's a mini series,
Mm-hmm.
and that thing is the scariest thing I've ever watched. No, but there's the director of like he just did Nosferatu, and he's done The Witch. He's done several of those.
I know who you're talking about. I just don't. I can't
Oh,
recall
my
his
goodness.
name.
I'm gonna have to. Nos. How do you spell Nosferatu?
It's not your strength.
No, spelling is awful. Nosferatu. Also, that's also a hard word to spell. Oh my goodness. Robert Eggers.
Oh yeah.
So Robert Eggers does he's being interviewed, and I've sent this clip to several people about marching show content and design and the things that you like, and in relation to that. But as a director, that's kind of our job as band directors. We're movie directors, but now it's just halftime. um he talks about the opening scene from Nosferatu and how he placed the shadow of the main character in a very specific spot. And the way he talked to the sound design guy is that he said, I want you to mute or reduce the other sounds in the room and do and up the sound of the curtains
Mhm.
to bring the attention to the curtains. And so that way the audience doesn't know that the female lead is levitating slightly.
Oh my gosh.
And like, so like the mindset of how you do those things and that creative style is something I think we also forget, is like how to bring the attention to the things that we need to bring attention to while reducing, like allowing other things like a sleight of hand. And so like that, I encourage you to go watch that, because like that's crazy. I would have never even, it's like the movie No Country for Old Men.
Oh yeah.
Like there's no movie score. The whole entire movie,
It's unsettling.
there's no music. And the director did that intentionally to put the watcher on
Because the
edge.
movie is unsettling.
And like that's the way we have to kind of approach marching band, is like we have to have intent behind everything and how we execute that intent. And like you are a huge component of that. And like people don't use their resources, and that's just like crazy. Sorry, I got on my high horse for a second.
You on a soapbox.
Yeah, I sure did. So coming back to, so you talked about the pressures about like being involved with that. So how do you deal with that?
But back then it was a big deal. Now I wouldn't really say there's pressure as much, because I, you know, I know that, I've sort of picked up the tips and tricks for, the actual like technical arranging part of it. Um, and so in really a good band that's taught well and makes really pretty sounds can do well, even if the arrangement is mediocre. And so, I do as best I can to give them the best opportunity to succeed. But the results are fun for me. I always enjoy, when my groups do well. I wouldn't say I have pressure though. The main pressure right now is just meeting deadlines, um, because it's really hard, and I might use this opportunity to ask your listeners who are band directors, or implore them. Managing a super long-term schedule is very difficult, and I've got better and better at it every year. But, you know, in August and September, band directors and drill writers especially don't get along very well. But because it's really hard to plan long-term projects. You guys you guys have long-term projects, but the majority of your job is you show up at one time and then you're done at another time. Have a really great friend from high school that's a dentist, and we always laugh and compare our schedules because he has appointments and he shows up, he does his appointments, and then he leaves. Whereas with me, it's like, I have taken a certain amount of projects. Could I take one more? I don't know. Maybe. And so, but if I did, would that compromise the quality or the timing of the other ones? Who knows? I don't know. Like, this schedule goes, until, a lot of times I like to have all my shows done in May, but some of my clients are flexible and can take them in June or July. Um, and so, like, I have to pick a certain number that, I'm going to start writing in January. I'm going to be done. How long is this show going to take me to write? I have a pretty good idea, but if this opener ends up taking longer, I'm not just going to be done with it. I'm going to keep on working on it till it's right. So what if I budget a day and it actually takes 3 days or 4 days? That just complicates your entire schedule for the whole rest of the year. You know? And so it's really tricky to plan your times, get those tight, take as many shows as you can to, to help as many people as possible, but also not take too many to where it compromises the quality and the timing of everything. So it is very tricky. And so I solve that by just being as communicative as possible with my clients. Like usually I'll do 2 or 3 shows ahead. Hey, just want to let you know I'm finishing this show. I'm starting another one on Wednesday. As soon as that one's done, I'm starting yours, and just try to communicate and be open with them. But it's just really hard. And so maybe as the listeners who are band directors are planning their shows and working with different designers, um, if you're able to show uh some compassion towards them in their super hard job that they have of making a long-term schedule. um I think that'll the better it is for everybody, because it is very difficult to do.
So, as if you had the perfect band director setup, what would be the ultimate timeline for you to get like a band director get to get in contact with you, go through your process, communicate? What would be the perfect timeline for you?
Are you talking about perfect timeline for me or the director?
You. So like to make your life easier in
Okay.
the process, because like for us, I know that we start planning, and because we're lunatics, um I started thinking of show design and concept the day after state marching contest. And that might be like absolutely obscene for some people, but that's just the way I'm wired. I'm
Yeah,
always on.
yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, people ask us this all the time. It's important to delineate between, the majority of our clients come to us looking for a show that's ready to go. And so if that's the case and they find a show in our library, they just need some tweaks or edits, man, we can do that at any time. Call us in July, like, as long as the show's available, because we do offer different levels of region, area, state exclusivity. Um, but as far as the creative process, doesn't really matter. As far as a custom show, the way my schedule is lined out is I've been writing for the same groups for years, sometimes decades, and for there to be an open spot, a band director has to die or retire.
Wow.
But
Well, hopefully,
for
the second one, not the first there, Luke.
Yeah, yeah, but an ideal timeline would be November. I know that I'm writing a custom show for them. In December, we start kicking around themes and source material. And in January, that's decided, and I can start writing.
Yeah, because like that's a whole nother creative process. So how do you dig down into that creative process?
Which one?
Yeah, any of them. Like, so like if you're doing a custom show, and this is also like if you are like like not a full-fledged band director yet and you're a college student or even a student who's thinking about going into band directing, like there are timelines and like all these kind of stuffs, because Luke, you don't only serve Texas, but you serve other states with the shows that you do, and now you're developing this timeline. You mentioned having like locked in region exclusivity.
Yeah.
How like that's something a lot of people don't realize that you have to deal with, because you want that show done custom to them specifically. So how do you approach that process?
Well, so when I talk about the exclusivity, that's only for a show that we have previously written. If it's a brand new custom show, this band is the only one in the universe that's going to be playing this show. Um, but if it's one that we have already written, then that's where exclusivity comes into play, because those are available to anyone, and we just don't really like whenever a band shows up to a region marching contest or a football game and the other band's playing their same show. What we found actually is um, pretty much all band directors are alike in that they want their students to succeed. They want their students to sound great, put a great performance. This is this is an area where there's a vast spectrum of band directors that are very opinionated on some part of the spectrum. There are band directors that have asked me before, why would someone else care if another band at their marching contest plays the same show? I'd be like, well, you'd have to ask them. And then there's other band directors that don't want anyone in the same solar system playing their same show in a fall. And so that's why we have multiple different levels that they can choose, that you can get. So we have a package. So for Texas, we go by UL TMEA regions. Out of Texas, we do a mile radius, or the entire state if they want it. But so we'll do a level of regional exclusivity, which includes football district, which is your music region in your classification. If you would like area exclusivity within your classification, you can get that. And if you want state exclusivity in your classification, you can get that. If it's out of Texas, there's just so many different circuits and different ways to do it. And so we just decided we'll just do a mile radius. So outside of Texas, they can choose a 100-mile radius around their school or the entire state to lock it down for their show.
And that's something like me as a first time like head director, and I didn't know that. Like, so like when people are like, you better hurry up and pick your show or like pick it from so-and-so, I didn't know anything about that. So by the time I got to the table, I was like, that is the wishbone.
Well, it's the same thing if you want Luke to write you a custom show and you have to get rights and go through Chase and so on and so forth. You also have to do that and make sure that you take care of those things.
Yeah.
And some people don't quite realize that.
Yeah, and when we do all that for you, and we've gotten to the point, so when I program my custom shows, and my custom show clients know this, that we try to program as many of the least expensive songs as we can, and we try to do the ones that are approved fairly quickly.
Yes,
and
that's important too.
Yes.
Yeah. And Jose talking about, you were sad that I didn't have Eagle Mountain Adventure anymore. We will also sort of sunset some shows that, like, you know what, this song is starting to get to be a licensing nightmare. Like, we don't know if it's going to be 2 months, 2 weeks, or 6 months. And we don't want to have our clients deal with that. And so we just pull the show. If somebody wants to play, it's like, yeah, you can, but here's the deal. Here's what's happened in the past.
Yeah, there's an asterisk attached to that one.
Yeah. So yeah, we try to watch for that, but we will handle all the licensing legwork on behalf of our clients. All that our clients do is pay for it, and we do everything else. But if there is something that takes unreasonably long, then we'll alert them. Or there's some of the shows I think we still have on the website that we'll pull at a certain time of year, because, like, this is going to take 3 months. So I don't know if in June I'd feel comfortable licensing this show, because who knows if it's going to be approved in August or not. So
what are some of the traps that band directors like find themselves in all the time when it comes to like doing either like a commission show or just a like a show off your website?
one of the hardest things for band directors, and this is with a marching show, with concert sight reading music, with spring concert music, one of the trickiest things is programming the right difficulty of music. And it's really easy to overprogram. I would say that's probably the biggest trap. And now luckily we are here and we are available. I always tell directors, hey, if something isn't working in the fall, let us know, and we can change, we can modify. But then that gets kind of nuanced, because, like, you have one day of rehearsals. Do you start chopping? It's like, well, let's give it a second. But if a couple weeks have gone by and this still isn't coming together, okay, let's talk about what do we need to do. But there's a couple of elements of picking the difficulty for your show. One of those is the trap of, you pass it out in May after your spring concert's done, and you read it with your seniors. That's a different band that's going to show up in August. And so, sure, it sounds good great now. Is it going to sound as good with your seniors gone? So that's one element of that. Another element is not just difficulty, like amount of notes, but also like parts being covered. Like, I talked to a client today that wanted to play one of my pretty stout grade twos, and the band is expecting two trumpet players in the fall. And that client was asking my advice on what I thought about that, and I answer it how I always do, which is like, this completely depends on the playing ability and the trustworthiness of these players, and how how you want your blood pressure regulated in the fall, because one of these kids moves or gets hurt, then what, you know um and you're gonna have kids that are gonna move, and you're gonna have kids, so like, what do you do about your synth player? Are you gonna trust this synth player to show up, to be reliable, to learn their part? It's hard on the, whenever you have a fewer number of performers on one instrument. Another nuance thing about difficulty is when you choose your difficulty. Let's say you want to up the difficulty next year in your show. There's lots of factors that should go into that. What's happening in your feeders, and et cetera. I think a common trap is upping the difficulty of your production based solely on success. Like, we did a great job last year. We played one of your grade twos. The kids did great, so I think we're ready for a grade three. It's like, well, do you think it's possible that they did such a good job because you chose the exact level of music that they needed? So basing an increase in difficulty only on success is a trap that some directors can fall into, because that decision can and should be made, but with lots of moving parts factored in.
Yeah, it's just like you watering a plant. You can overwater a
You
plant.
sure can. Found that out the hard way.
And so you're like, oh, watering a plant's great for the plant, but at some point in time, if you keep on watering that plant and you overwater it, you're going to drown the plant. And
You
it's the
should have
same
told me that sooner.
same thing with like the difficulty thing. And I've heard that's like, oh, like my band plays grade fours pretty consistently, and like we've been asked, well, why don't you just try for a five? And I'm just like, they're not. I haven't done the correct amount of feeding the plant in order for us to get there. And there's just certain things that we have to change and do in order to get to that point. But I'm not going to risk my health and my sanity, and I'm not going to risk the success of the ensemble for my eyes being bigger than my stomach.
Well,
Mhm.
something that you do too, and I didn't realize that you did this until recently, and other people may or may not realize it either, is that you very close to almost have a true wind ensemble. It's
Yes.
almost one person on a part.
Yep.
With very few exceptions. So like one person's not there,
Yeah, it causes
that's
issues,
rough.
and that's what kind of where we're at right now
Yeah.
too. So, but so I mean that is a big trap.
I think Luke kind of touched on this a second ago, but I think that a trap that people fall into, and I could be wrong, I've never been the sole person responsible for picking a show, and that is a lot of responsibility. And especially like in your situation, when you had played Inkle Mountain Adventure, you were going into a program where you didn't know any of the kids. You don't know their strengths. That's a different like conversation. But I think people forget that you have to move around.
Yeah.
Like they're like,
You're just-
my band plays, this in concert season. We'll be fine playing this marching show. And it's like, no, I'm sure you can play it, but you also have to move your body while you're doing it. So
Yeah, I mean, I've fallen into plenty of those traps.
I know.
So, what other traps do you feel like other directors have fallen into?
That's really the main one. That's that's it's tricky to nail that difficulty down. And that's really the main one. But another trap would be just like not trusting themselves, you know? Like, because there's the flip side of that, because the reason this is so difficult is because it's like such a narrow thing, if if this side is picking it too hard to show, then the other one is like not trusting yourself and not getting your students to where they're in the best position to be competitive. And um and so that's why it's just such a real tricky tightrope to walk,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some things that you wish directors did in order to help your process?
um kind of like I just said, just trust themselves. Trust themselves, trust their judgment, trust their students. Um, I have some clients that I know I'm going to get a call from them the first week of August, and it's like this isn't working, and I'm like, just let's just trust yourself. You uh you're intelligent. You've gotten to a point to where you're very successful, and you looked at this. You knew your kids. You chose what to do. Let's give it a couple of weeks, and see what happens. And more often than not, it's like, okay, yeah, it worked out. Sometimes it doesn't, but you know, I always encourage my clients to trust themselves, trust their gut, and because they know what's best for their program, and they're best suited to make those decisions.
Yeah. We call September and sometimes early October the watering hole, because when we get into late September, early October, that's when we bring out the water hose and we start watering parts.
Yeah,
And
and,
so
and that's a good time to do that. Give them August to step all over themselves. And if it's not happening in, yeah, like you said, September, early October, that's the time. Whether it be the entire passage, whether it be just for certain students.
the biggest component of learning is kind of failure. I mean, think about sixth grade band. Like, you fail a whole lot before you become good at
I
something.
saw a graphic recently, and it was on Instagram. I don't remember what it was called, but I think it was called the learning theory, but it was basically like a curve. And the whole idea is that basically how good you get at something is how long you can tolerate being bad at something.
Yeah, I
And
like that.
that's like so true. It's because some of the people that are more resilient or can just like keep at it even after failure are the ones that eventually overcome that hurdle.
Well, I mean, like Zach, like talking to Zach, talking to John, talking to all these people, like in their first X amount of years. I mean, John said, I think he got a 2-2-1 at marching contest, and he has a gold medal and a silver medal to show for it. So, like, who's going to really remember the 2-2-1? Same thing with like Zach Sims. I mean, he said they didn't get a sweepstakes his first year there, and how that turned. Same thing with Brian Sowers. Those first for you a few years were about the failures before they got to the success. And like ultimately, who's going to remember? Like in the grand scheme of things, do they remember those failures, or do they remember the successes?
Well, I
Mhm.
don't think many people that have been successful of something have a perfect record.
I mean,
That's
I've
true.
I've gotten a 2 before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so have I.
me too.
But it's just you don't learn by being perfect all the time. But you will remember the times that you fail, and that will inform your decisions for the future so you don't make the same mistakes again.
I'm not going to put my finger in that wall socket.
Yeah.
I learned my lesson from that one.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Yeah, and I think that's something like also uh, like as a band director, I know that it is hard for me to ask for help. And that's something that we have to consistently remember. Like you were talking about imposter syndrome and having that like lull and like this is where I get found out. Like I battled that very hard this year.
I think you're still battling
Yeah,
it
oh,
based
I
on some of the conversations we've had
yeah,
today, this week, this month.
but, like, I mean, and we've been very fortunate because, like, and I've said this several times, that we stumbled our way through the process, and, like, we ended up 8th for a state marching contest, which is great, but, like, I remember going like, "Oh my goodness, this is awful." I've told Alexa this, I go, "I felt and I feel consistently that I am not being the best educator that I can be for one reason or another, and that might just be a mental block."
I think it is. I don't get it, but you say it frequently. So
What do you, yeah, Jose, what do you mean by that?
I don't know. It's just like so. Like this year, the band right now, the Gatesville band program is in a interesting transition, and I've talked to several of my mentors and really good friends about it. That the first year we made the state marching contest and got over that hump, that was about proving that we could do it. The second year was proving that it wasn't a fluke. And then the third year is proving that we belong. And this third year has taken the most, I think, toll on, like, I guess me as a band director more so than any other year beforehand, because like I am having to come to, I don't know, it's about this motivation and always trying to say, hey, we can get there again, we can do it again. And it's just like that imposter syndrome, and that's really really difficult. I mean, and just like you said, like you're going through this process and you like are pouring yourself into it, and then you get to a point like, oh, I'm gonna get found out, and then it turns out to be all great. And that's like really difficult because us as educators and as musicians, we're programmed to find what's wrong.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
you've talked a lot about imposter syndrome. Have you seen the clip? Do you know Ilona Maher, the rugby Olympian?
Yes.
Okay. There's a clip of someone interviewing her, and I just like wish that I could embody this, but interviewing her, and they're like, "How do you deal with imposter syndrome?" And she's like, "I don't have that. I don't know what that is." And so she's like, "I guess that's how I deal with it." And I just like, I wish that that was me. You know what I mean? I think we could all take a little bit of like
Yeah.
her sprinkle of energy and just try to apply that. But I know, like every time somebody talks about that now, I just think about that. Like, I don't know what that is.
But like, so like we all as people just kind of need to be better about reaching out for help and asking for help when we need it. And that's like a great service that you and like I know some other designers are better about.
Yeah.
But just like being, hey, you don't have to worry about like bothering me. You're not actually bothering me. You're reaching out so that way you're using all your
I don't even
resources.
think that's necessarily what it is. But sometimes it's hard to feel like what you're saying is, "Hey, I'm failing at what I'm trying to do, and I need someone to come tell me how to do it better." And I think
It
that that's where people kind of get hung up.
Yeah, I think another part of it, Alexa, is I had a conversation with my custom show clients this year that I said, I want to be involved early and often. Like no band director wants anyone to hear what their show sounds like in August, but I try to convince them like, no, trust me, I do, because I'll get to the Alamo Dome. This might, be the first time I'm seeing this show, and they're using the wrong instrument or the wrong synth setting, or like something like the wrong mallets on something, or this articulation is completely backwards, or so. It's like, we could have had this conversation in August, like if I would have, but like in even if they're having me out for a clinic the week of area, like there's a lot of times where I'm like, I would have asked you to do this differently, but it's too late now. And so the problem with that is like, well, when it's not too late, no director is excited about someone hearing their band in this kind of shape. But like, I just try to convince them, it's like, yes, I do. I understand it's not going to be squeaky clean, but I will see like some big picture things that it's like, okay, if we can get this fixed now, because if we don't, it's going to be too late by area.
Yeah. You got to start working on your winter body before you get to your summer
I
body.
had I had that experience today because we had a clinician out, and I love her so much, and I trust her. And the way about the way that she gives you the information is she is so uplifting, and I don't she's just very encouraging, but she also kinda throws in there, like, "Next time you do something like this, you should do this," like, 6 months ago. And it's like, "You're so right, but I don't feel bad that you told me that. I feel a little bit bad now
It's
because
like,
we
how
have
do
to
you
go to
tell me
contest
that
on
I'm
Tuesday."
awful with
Yeah.
being nice about it? It's
It's
like,
like, "You're so right, and I know that I need to listen to you." And it's just like, but that's why we have people come out, because there was one thing, it was like a tiny thing that she fixed, and I don't know why no one else has pointed it out, because it's not like today was the first time that anyone else has heard the music. There's like one measure of something, and she said, "I think this is a preference thing for you, but why don't you try it this way?" And they played it, and I was like, "That wasn't really a preference thing. I just never, like, heard it that way, and now it sounds so much better because you came and you said something about it." But
yeah, and it's the same thing. Like, I've gone out a couple times to clinic some groups, and going into like during concert season, I step in front of the group and I go, "Oh God, they're still in marching band mode."
yeah,
Like concert band and marching band are two separate things, and like,
hopefully.
yeah, could you imagine? Just like actually, what we need to do is do
We're
what
gonna
you need.
throw in a visual right
Yeah,
here.
like what you need to do is like write a concert piece, but it's on rolly chairs, and so that way they can be moving while playing.
I handed out
There you
Mechanical Monsters today,
Oh,
which has, like, music stand pencil situation,
that's a good
and
way to make sure they have their pencils.
well, what do you yeah, that is true. What do you think the first part is that they tried to practice?
The pencil.
Yeah, it's like, well, we should probably play concert F, but yeah.
Sound good first, then we'll get to the pencil.
Yeah, that is like a privilege that you get to earn now. You have to have it on your stand, though, in case you need it.
Yeah, just in case. Just in case. Um, but like I think people need to use and trust that and trust you and trust the people that they're leaning on and just get it out there. The faster you do that, the quicker your ensemble will benefit from it.
Yeah.
And so I think just getting kind of through that process, which I mean, if you're getting bands to the state marching or your product is getting bands to the state marching contest, like how does that happen year in and year out? Because like not everyone can say, like, I mean, when was the last time you didn't have a band at the state marching contest?
Had to have been a while.
10 years or so.
10
Yeah.
years? I mean, that's a heck of a streak. Like how does that happen?
Um, I think it just sort of like a snowball effect because this is all that I do. So I think just that is a big help, you know, um, because people know that if they need marching band music for a small school, like there's not very many places to go, you know, and so I think that helps, and I think a record of success helps. I've been really lucky that I've had some really great groups trust me, and um, and so then they do well, and other bands are like, well, I want to do well too. Who did you guys use? And so it ends up being a lot of the same music designers and drill writers and stuff like that. So I think it's just a snowball effect from all the different factors involved that um I this is all I want to do, and so I try to get better at it, and so I hopefully get better at it, and other people maybe see that, and it just sort of multiplies on itself, I guess.
Do you have a favorite show that you've done?
That's gotta be a hard question.
You know what? Yeah, it changes every year because as I would like to think that I get better and better at this every year. My best work is my newest work. Um, I get emotionally connected to shows if the music that I use, the music is like near and dear to my heart. Um, you asked me earlier what my favorite Beatles song was, Blackbird, and I got to use that in a show this past year. it was sort of like a bird themed show. I wrote it for Ganado High School, and
I remember seeing that.
Yep.
Yeah.
For another fantastic band program.
yeah, and they've made they're in Area E. They've made state finals a couple times. They got the silver medal this year. This is the highest they ever finished. I got to use Blackbird, and I also have fond memories when I was a kid listening to classic rock with my dad. He loves Boston and Journey and Leonard Skinner, and so we used Freebird as the closer.
Oh.
And so you guys might remember the alto sax soloist got
I
up on the drum
remember.
major podium
Yeah.
and did this like ripping Freebird solo
Yep.
on the podium. So I got to use music that was very near and dear to my heart, and I really love how that show turned out. Just because of the music that I got to use, there was very deeply personal for me.
Yeah, I
And-
remember watching that one.
Yeah, that was a good show. And I guess that says also, I mean, I get that because like last year we did a show that was a little bit more abstract, called IC. But I had such a deep connection to our ballad. Our ballad was I See the Light from Tangled.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's like top 5 of Jose's favorite
oh
movies.
yes,
Oh
I
yeah,
love
any Disney music it's all bangers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
I mean, they don't make them like they used to. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness. But like we had other schools like fangirling over like our show, and like some of it was like out there, like it was Celestial Nights and
Yeah.
Joy by oh, what's his name?
Frank Kelly.
No.
I wish you wouldn't have asked me this question.
Bum 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 beata dita bum beata da da bum dita.
remember.
I can't remember, but like out of all this kind of upper level music, there's I See the Light,
Yeah.
and that's all anyone could
I
remember.
will also tell you that was when I took the kids to the region marching contest, like sitting in the bleachers. Eleanor was like, "Mommy, that's Tangled." I was like, "Yes, it is. You have to be quiet now."
Yeah, and it's the same thing. Like with this year, we used "Go Fly a Kite" in our show because
Mary
that was
Poppins,
just
yeah.
about flowers and all that kind of stuff. But like that was the part that the kids wanted to rip on.
Yeah.
Just because like that was something that was like a connective tissue, and that was like really fantastic.
Yeah.
But like having those passion projects just makes it that much more impactful. And I think that I think sometimes we forget about those types of things, or we tilt the other direction and go full throttle, and then it's like I've bit off more than I can chew. And so we've also been a part of that situation. So you have done all these things, and you have built your small empire. Okay, we're gonna put like the Caesar olive leaves around. That would be really good. You
Ooh.
have perfect hair for that. Okay, the olive leaves for Caesar.
I'm gonna have to get to work on
Yeah,
that.
I mean, we're gonna have to. We need to have that at your booth next year. We need to have a ceremony where we
Mhm.
bring the
Like a
olive leaves.
frame,
Yes, and
yeah.
actually, we're gonna have toga day at Luke
Oh.
McMillan's booth. Bring your
That,
togas.
that doesn't fit the brand.
um, so you've built the empire.
Empire,
The
that's the word.
empire. So you actually have like a fantastic team that is associated with your brand. Like who's all on your team right now?
Yeah, so when I first went full time, so my last year to teach at Wiley, we had a really great student teacher. Not a lot. I don't think a lot of people know. A lot of people talk to him all the time, but they don't realize that I met him. He student taught with us at Wiley. But so David Spruill is our business manager. He started with me just part time. Story on that. And it was when I was about to start administering Barry's library. Barry had been talking to me about it. I was already sort of up to my ears in the writing and everything else, the admin, the invoicing, the contracting, the licensing, all that kind of stuff. And so when the Barry thing came about, I was like, my business might like double. How am I going to handle all this? And I had grown close with David, and he graduated from Hardin Simmons, and he graduated in December. So that spring, he was, it's hard to get a job in the spring. So I don't think he would mind me telling this story. He was teaching some lessons. He was subbing a little bit, and he was making sandwiches at McAllister's. And so I said, "Hey, listen, man, I'm going to need some help. Sort of part time right now. But if you'd be interested in doing that at some point in the future." And he said, "If you can pay me what I'm making at McAllister's, I'll quit today and start working for you." And I said,
priorities right there.
"Okay, well, how much is that?" And he told me, and so made it work. And so he worked part time for me. He got a band directing job in the fall at EULA, which is a little bitty 1A. They don't have a football team. They don't have a marching band, but it's just about 15 minutes here outside of Abilene. And he continued to work for me part time when he was at EULA. And he did that, I think, for 2 years until we got so busy. It was sort of the same thing for him, that he would teach and he'd get home and he'd answer emails for me until, late at night. And so it became obvious, like, there's more work here than for part-time. And so I brought him on full-time, and he's been with me ever since. I think that was 2018, something like that. And David, I got to give him a shout out. He does an amazing job. Because he does all of the invoicing, he manages all the exclusivity, he manages all the copyright licensing. He keeps my bookkeeper and accountant. He keeps all those people happy with, doing things exactly how they want them done. Plus all the random things like, "Hey, I need you to go pick up the trailer for the booth because of this," or like, "Hey, we need a ladder that's this," like all the, the booth stuff and everything. He's great, and he's an invaluable asset. And I'm so lucky that he is with us and that he's worked for us for this long. Recently, the past year and a half or so, I added a new team member that I needed to add again, like, for a long time. But, you know, since David, he got to where he was doing all the admin stuff, but even just with the music stuff, I found myself doing, with our shows that are in our library, we offer any edits that they would need, kind of customization, stuff like that. I was also writing brand new shows. I was finding myself spending about 70% of my time just like editing existing shows. And if you look at all of those edit requests that come in, I would say at least half of those could have been done by anyone who knows how to use Finale. It was hey, could you transpose this, the alto sax line for like in a third trumpet part or something like that. I would say the remaining probably 25% of those could be done by someone who knows the software and understands, like, small schools, how little kids understand music, stuff like that. Understand the instruments. Hey, could you make a third clarinet part that stays below the break? Or, something like that. It was a pretty small percentage of edits that we came in that really needed my love and attention. Like, something like, how this is developing here. We actually we need to get in and out of this quicker because of this guard transition. Could you smooth out this transition? Something like that. So there's very few edits to a show that need my specific attention. And so I thought, man, how great would it be to hire someone to help me with this that could do this? But they've got to check a lot of boxes. First of all, just on the technical side, the setup that we have with Finale and Mac, well, it used to be Finale. That's a completely other topic. But previously, they've got to be on my version of Finale. They've got to use Virtual Drumline, which is our percussion sound set. They've got to be on a Mac. They've got to be, all this stuff. That's just the technical stuff. Now, they've got to know how to use Finale. They've got to understand how little kids process music. They have to understand all these instruments. They have to maybe have some arranging taste, So TMEA 2023, it was pretty much getting to a breaking point. It's like, you know what? I need some help. I need some major help. And so um I found about 4 people that is like, "Hey, would you be interested in helping me just like by project, like project by project basis?" And actually, let me back up. Who I ended up hiring, he was a client of ours. His name is Randall Himes. He was the band director at Whiteface, which is a very successful 1A perennial state marching advancer and champion. He was the band director there, and he sent me some edits for his show that he got from us and that he had done on Finale. He wanted to ask my advice. He said, "Hey, here's some edits that I've done to this show. What do you think?" I said, number one, it's great. Number two, it looks amazing. It's beautiful. Another sort of side story, I have extremely high standards with how my sheet music looks. And there are so many things that we do in the background that band directors don't even realize that we do to make their lives easier. Like getting phrases on a line break, putting multi-measure rests on a page break so that if it's in flip folders, they can flip it up, stuff like that. That we have very high standards on, and I've just learned over time, um, misspelling things to make it easier for a kid. Sure, a concert C sharp is the third of an A major chord if you're in D minor, but I'm not going to write a C sharp. I'm going to write a D flat because it's going to be way fewer hands raised in a rehearsal, right? So Randall sent me this, and it looked amazing, and I said, this looks great. This sounds great. Would you consider helping me just sort of on a project by project basis? He said, yeah, sure. I sent him a project. He had it done the same night. I'm like, oh my goodness. And so I sent him more and more projects, more and more projects. And I think that was only a few months. And I said, hey, listen, I've been wanting to hire someone full time for this. Would you be interested in doing this? And he said, yes. So Randall has been on our team since, I believe, September of 23, I guess.
Well,
And
that once again, that says again, like if you put yourself out there and you allow opportunities to happen, I mean, you're never gonna know if you don't do it.
mhm.
Like that, he would have never had that opportunity if he didn't take that risk to send you that email and go like, "Hey, what do you think?" And now it's turning out to be, a good decision for him career wise, and probably like with his family and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So that is Randall is amazing. Now it's to where he will ask my advice. He'll say, "Hey, they're asking for this. I don't know, this is how I did it, and it's great now because instead of me having to be involved in all of those, I'm involved in maybe when it's really busy, a couple per week." He'll say, "Hey, they asked for this, and could you check this over and let me know?" And I'll, in a lot of cases, I say, "Yeah, that's great," or I might say, "This isn't how I would have done this a little bit differently, and here's why, and here's how I would have done it." Sometimes it's just a quick conversation with him. Do this, move this down, change this, and you're good to go. Oh, okay, great. Sometimes it is I have to take over the steering wheel and like, yeah, let me just take care of this, and you move on to this other thing because I don't want this to get backlogged. You do that, and I'll do this. Um, so Randall and David are full time. I'm extremely lucky and grateful for both of them. And then we have a few sort of contractors on the side. I talk to Eric Rath quite a bit. We have his shows, and so a lot of times he'll personally do the edits on his show or something like that. Have a couple of have some guys that help me out on percussion from time to time, stuff like that. But that's sort of the core group here at the office.
No. Eric Rath, like he's a heck of a band director.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I've seen his like I remember like starting to dip into the like let's do custom shows. He was on the short list of people I wanted to
Yeah,
contact.
I've played a couple pieces of his, but
And then he's still putting out fantastic bands.
I know. It's like I don't
Like
That's crazy.
Yep.
I'm like, when do you have the time? And I'm a workaholic. It's like, when do you have the time?
Yeah, he's a great band director, great arranger, and even better person. He's just an amazing guy, and so I'm lucky to know him.
Oh, yeah.
So with people who might be like out of state and they're trying to come Texas, and you've done some business with people out of state. Like, how do the schools work differently from like other states versus like the Texas thing?
Man, great question. I've really enjoyed learning about that, and following that. Something that might be surprising to you is we're sort of in our Texas bubble here in multiple ways. First off, Texas is the only school that I've seen or know of that has a state organization that governs all of their extracurriculars.
Yeah.
Um, and as a matter of fact, it's I think it's probably less common that there's even a state sanctioned marching band contest at all. If there is, it's their version of TMEA or TBA that oversees it. Um, but more often than not, there is no state marching contest. There's regional contest if you want to go to this contest at your college, or some states might be, pretty much like there's this big contest at this college that's every year and it's been going on for years. And this is pretty much the de facto state marching contest because all the best bands go here. Other states have regional circuits, like California has a circuit just for like it's like a Southern California band association. Basically, it's not uncommon out of state to see really no classifications. Like all the bands go and compete, and it might be kind of like BOA in that. The winner of the 1A class gets to compete in the night show, but there's no 1A state marching contest. Um, Texas is pretty unusual in the fact that there's no like effect caption or effect judge. In pretty much most other states, it's very much like BOA style sheets, is I would say more common, even if it is the state band association that runs the contest. They're going to have very similar sheets to BOA. Texas is an outlier in that there are no numeric scores that have to do with like your weekly to show placement. Like it's a big conversation with my out of state schools. It's like, yeah, we're sort of neck and neck with this other school. We went to this show last week. They got a 74, we got a 73. But then the show the next week we went and we flipped and we got a 76 at that show. But Texas doesn't do anything like numerical scores don't really mean anything. It's all about their rankings, So that's how Texas is an outlier. But then you have states that are all different from each other. I would say one big difference in Texas is, for the most part, you'll find some small schools that don't have bands, but for the most part, it doesn't matter how small the town is. They're going to have a band, and they're going to be expected by the community to do well. That is unusual compared to other states. I have a lot of clients out of state that it's not unusual to go to a fairly sizable school and they don't have a marching band. And this director is starting the marching band at this school. And you know what? When they leave, they probably won't have a marching band again. It just depends on who they hire. The budgets are way different outside of Texas. And I remember the other thing I was going to say is participation is wildly different depending on the state. For instance, I have several clients in Chula Vista, California, just south of San Diego, and I go there every year to help them. And their bands over there are, well, even just the bands within this school district are wildly different, but I would compare them to a pretty good 3As. Like a band that you would probably see at the 3A state marching contest, or maybe like the top half of area, something like that. The difference is, and I'm talking Anywhere from 20, depending on the school over there. There's one band that has 20 wins. There's one band that has closer to 50 or 60. The difference is there's 2,200 kids in the high school 9 through 12. So, which would be, and what is that in Texas, a 6A?
Yeah.
So just the amount of participation is what. Now I have other schools. There's a school that I ran into at BOA Grand Nationals that was playing one of my shows. That it's way different. They were from Missouri, much more like Texas. Very big percentage of this small school that's in band. So that's wildly different from state to state. What I was going to say, Jose, about the difference in budgets. I was in a band hall, which, by the way, band hall, did you guys know is a Texas term?
Yes.
Any
Yeah.
So we've been in discussions about this, the band room versus the band hall. And I refuse to say band room.
Me too.
Well, no, you say band hall in Texas, but that's only in Texas. When you're out, they call that a band room. But I was in the band room because this is in California, talking to this client, and they got $0 from the school for their band budget. Their parents raised every dime of what they spent on instruments, uniforms, sheet music, repair. Every dime they spend is raised by the parents.
That's a lot of dimes.
And the school pays the band director's salary, and that's it.
So one of our really good friends is Stephanie DeLuca, and she is the one of the athletic band directors at the University of Utah. And she's a Texas product. Her husband um, graduated from Round Rock High School
Hmm.
and got a music degree from Baylor. And she decided that she was going to get her doctorate from Florida State University. So she has her degree in, wind conducting and then something else.
She has a PhD in conducting.
Yeah. So like she's at the top of the game, but she started off ever at Clifton.
Oh, nice.
So back then she was Stephanie Colburn. But her husband had to become a band director in Florida. So like James is not only certified in Texas, he's certified in Florida, and he is certified in Utah. And apparently the band programs in Utah,
Those are 3 different places.
yes, very different places. And the band programs in Utah are very, I guess, condensed. And the big thing to do in Utah is choir.
Yes, the big thing in Utah is choir.
And so like he's had to go like from like the whole
There
entire
are few
thing.
and far between band positions in general in Utah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like he's fought through those battles, and like, hey, Florida,
In Florida, there were more bands for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
He
definitely.
worked at like I think the equivalent of a 2A type school in Florida.
Mhm.
But it was kind of a similar situation where he didn't have almost any budget.
and I think like the school district paid half his salary.
It was something weird.
And then the
he was like
boosters
half
paid his
paid.
other half of the salary. Like it was
Mhm.
crazy. So
Mhm.
like, I mean, that's why Texas is the promised land, and why other, music educators want to come here, because there's a lot of stability in what we do. And sometimes we take that for granted.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite memory as a band director, or as a student, or as a composer / arranger?
Wow. Yeah. So band student, I guess. One of my favorite memories is I always viewed all-state band as just elusive. Like that's what everybody else does. I could never do that. But when I was a senior, I thought, you know what? I'm the best trumpet player at a pretty good. So at the time it was just 1A through 5A, and Wiley was a 3A, so we were at the top of ATSSB. It's like one of the biggest schools in ATSSB, and I'm the best player here. If I practice this music every single day, I could probably make all state band. And so practice music every day. Mr. Lenny helped me with it. I got to area. I got second at area and made all state. And I got to all state. We were in the audition room. We had, checked into the hotel. I found my way to where I was going. I open my case and I find that my parents had written me a note in the case, wishing me luck and just saying how proud they were of me and stuff like that. Um, so that's probably my favorite memory as a band student. Really great memory. And then of course playing in the all state band was amazing. We played the real arrangement of Stars and Stripes Forever. I thought that was the coolest thing in the freaking world. Like the real arrangement, it wasn't like a Mike Story arrangement or something like that.
That's
And
fun.
so yeah, that was crazy. Um, and
Imagine
favorite,
like getting to that point where you're like, it says Sousa, but arranged by like
yeah,
like actually having that
Y-
gone is like this is
yeah,
a thing. Yeah, no,
yeah,
I've lived that life.
yeah. It was wild. Um, Favorite memory as a director. One of my favorite things about teaching was teaching the jazz band. I played in the lab bands at North Texas and had some really great lab band directors when I was there that really inspired me um, to teach jazz. I love listening to jazz, love playing it, but I really love teaching it. And we were lucky enough to bring in some really great guest artists to play with us at our band, jazz band spring concert. We would rent out this old historic theater downtown, and we brought in Wayne Bergeron, Eric
Oh,
Marienthal, Tom Bones Malone, Steve Weiss, like some big names to come and play. And those guys were so cool, so gracious, so accommodating. Um, uh, so the makers of the Cars franchise for Pixar, they did Planes
yeah.
like
Yes,
sequels to
yes, yes,
those.
yes.
So Wayne Bergeron which is like a top call studio trumpet player in LA. He was supposed to play on the Planes movie, but he had already booked the gig to play with us. And so he turned the Planes movie down to
Wow.
to play. And I told that story from the stage, and the crowd just like went nuts, when they heard that story. So that's probably my best memory is just being involved in the jazz band and teaching the jazz band, playing those, doing those really cool
What
concerts.
was the highest band that you got into over at UNT as
Oh,
far
at
as lab
UNT,
bands?
I was lucky enough to stumble my way into the 7 o'clock lab band. Um,
How many lab bands are there?
there's 9. And
It's a
I
bunch of
was
lab
playing a
bands.
lot of bass at the time, but I did the math, and I'm like, you know what? There's one bass player in a band, so like the ninth best bass player is in the 9 o'clock, whereas like in the 9 o'clock lab band, like the 40 through 45th best trumpet players, like that's better odds. So so I did the lab bands on trumpet. Yeah, I started, and I didn't do it till my senior year. I worked at restaurants when I was in college, and it's a little bit complicated, but long story short, for all intents and purposes, the time of the band is when they rehearse. So the 1 o'clock is the best. They rehearse at 1, the 2 o'clock rehearse at 2, and so forth. And so when I was in college, I just sort of said, "No, I'm never going to be able to play in a lab band because the type of lab band that I'm going to make is at night, right in the middle of my shift." So I just sort of gave up. Because they have full master's and doctoral programs
Yeah.
in jazz.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
those
like,
that's like that's such a crazy thing. Like, oh, I was at the bands in UNT. Then you say I was in one of the lab bands. Okay, you have my attention.
yeah. Well, because like those top bands, in a lot of cases, it was like masters and doctoral students
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
those top bands. And so I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make one, but if I make one, then it's going to be one of those. So my senior year, I was finally like, I'm going to move my schedule around to where I can work during the day and clear my night out for a lab band. So I played in the 8 o'clock my fall semester my senior year, and I got moved up to the 7. And I played second trumpet and sometimes split lead in the 8 o'clock and then the 7 finally. So
So
by
what
the way,
what
shout out! I had an amazing lab band director in the 7 o'clock. His name's David Faig. He is the director of jazz studies, I believe, still at Gonzaga, and where he got his undergrad. And he instilled in me a love for teaching jazz because he loved it so much. The way he taught, like bassy swing and stuff, I soaked it all up, and I loved his energy and his vibe, and I transferred that to years and years of teaching jazz after that. So, one of my favorite teachers in college.
Is there anything that because I know you love being a full-time composer arranger and that's obviously what you do full-time now, but is there anything that you really miss about teaching every day, like in a school setting?
Yeah, you know what I love? Well, my answer is always jazz band.
Yeah.
And I actually, Jose, I don't know if you were here earlier when we were getting set up. I was telling Alexa this. I have a really cool opportunity this year. I'm teaching the ACU, Abilene Christian University Jazz Band this spring, which is really fun. That their director left, and I guess they're going to do a full search and stuff. But they asked me to come in, so I'm doing that for the spring semester, and that's really fun. So my answer to that is always, I really miss teaching jazz
Jazz
band,
band.
but
Yeah.
what I do love, but because as far as like being around students, I get to do that as much as I want to in the fall for clinics and stuff like that. But what I don't get in that experience, which I really miss and love, is the arc of an entire like. When I was at Wiley, I taught the high school second band, and I loved it. I love those kids. I love the arc of so like from the very first rehearsal when we're passing out music and reading it to where you're like, this is kind of working, but this is too. And so pull this one up again. Let's see how this, and then that process of like, okay, I think I have a program picked out. I think I'm tightening this up. And then you pick it and it's like, all right, let's get to work. How are we going to prioritize our time? And like into the very last performance of it, that whole arc, that's really fun for me. And I'm getting, I don't get that when I go to clinics because I'm there for, 45 minutes to 2 hours. But I'm getting to experience that this year with teaching the ACU Jazz Band. Is that whole arc from the beginning of the semester all the way to the end? I really miss that.
It's almost like you get to be everyone's band uncle or grandpa, where you get to come in and you get to have fun. And then you ultimately just get to leave them with their directors who are responsible for them
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
problems.
Here you go.
Yeah, that's so where did you work when you were in college?
I worked at Chili's, and
Oh
I
yeah, triple dipper.
Triple dipper.
I don't know how the company is now, but I would always recommend to my students that being a server is a really great way to make extra money. The schedules are flexible. If you just need, if I needed to work, I would just show up. It's like, hey, do you want to go home? Yeah, I'll go home. Okay, great. I'm working your shift. If you needed someone to pick it up, you could usually send a text or two and have your shift picked up pretty easily. You walked out with cash. Um, and specifically, I think Chili's is a great restaurant. I think the company that owns them, Brinker, is a great company. Um, people always talk about like, oh, they'll spit in your food or whatever. Like I can honestly say, like I never saw one thing at Chili's that I felt like food safety was compromised. I will still go and eat there. I still love it. Um, and they were very serious about food safety and all that kind of stuff. So great company, great job.
They've had like a massive uptick recently over the past like year, two,
Mhm.
That triple
maybe.
dipper
Yeah.
thing.
Mhm.
I
a
love
TikTok thing.
their like chicken tenders.
Oh
I
yeah, chicken
got
crispers.
you.
Yeah.
I was pregnant when I did this, so it must have been like, I don't know, 5, 6 months
Well,
ago.
you were,
But
yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm about to say.
I
Yeah,
got I went and got you, and by extension me, a triple dipper with
we
chicken
know how that
crispers.
really worked
Yeah.
out. You got yourself some triple dippers,
you got to
and
benefit
I
from that.
benefited from it.
So one gripe back in the day when I was working there, the way how they made the chicken crispers was they dipped it in a liquid batter and then before they fried it, and they were super like pillowy and soft. I don't think they have that liquid batter anymore. They're like the crispy. It's like a
Yeah.
flour type batter, which they're
No.
still okay, but I really
Yeah.
loved that liquid batter
Yeah.
back in the
Well,
day.
that's the same thing with like Pizza Hut. Did you like feel like Pizza Hut changed their crust recipe and it just
I haven't
doesn't?
eaten enough Pizza Hut to
Oh,
make
but
an
the thing
informed
is, like, I grew up in the
opinion.
Ninja Turtle era, so like Pizza Hut was a thing.
I went to Pizza Hut, but I went to like the 90s buffet, but I couldn't tell you about the crust back
Oh
then.
man, I can't. I mean, there's a reason
wasn't
why
a crust
I'm the
connoisseur
size
in
I
the
am. It's
90s.
because Pizza Hut. I mean, after a T-ball game, Pizza Hut.
It's the place to be.
That was hopping.
Yeah.
It was hopping, but they changed their recipe for their crust. I'm like, the grease isn't the same
I
on this
believe
thing.
you. Yeah.
Like this ain't greasy.
You know that there are classic Pizza Hut locations across the state.
I did
Whoa.
not know that.
I think there's some out near Luke. There's one in Fairfield. I know that for a fact. I don't know where the next closest one is, but they are classic. Like red cup and
Whoa.
chandelier. I'll have to find it and
Oh,
post it.
we might have to
I've
go.
sent this to you before, and the look that you're giving me now is not the level of interest you gave me then.
It's because you send it to me through Instagram, and that's
Well, I
the way
just
we
want you to.
communicate.
This reaction here is one that I enjoy. I'm glad that you finally have found out about this.
Yeah. Luke, are you a foodie at all?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I
Okay.
love eating it. I love making it.
Oh, what's your favorite thing to make?
So I have a Blackstone,
Oh,
and
I love a
I've really been
Blackstone.
getting into that. Um, so favorite thing to make is I make an amazing birria taco. Are you
Okay.
familiar with this?
Yeah.
I'm brown.
Okay. Well, I figured. So yeah, it's like a whole process of like braising the beef short ribs all day, and then you take it out to the Blackstone. You dip the tortillas in the juice, and you put the meat in and the cheese, and you grill on the Blackstone. That's amazing. So yeah, I can do a killer burger, killer breakfast on the Blackstone.
Blackstones are good for
Yeah,
breakfast.
I really think we should get
I
one.
want a Blackstone. I don't know where we're gonna put it.
Yeah, we don't have enough like space.
We would, as a family now of 5, I feel like we would use a Blackstone for sure.
It depends on your porch, because it has to go outside.
Yeah.
Because I lived in sort of a smaller house, and I'd been eyeing Blackstones, but I moved to a house that had a bigger porch, and that was like the very first thing that I bought.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we should.
Oh,
I support your decision, Jose, in looking into getting one.
oh my goodness.
But because you know that for a Blackstone, I don't feel like you would use it very often.
No,
I feel
you
like
would.
that would be
Yeah,
my.
that's a you
yes,
thing.
Yes. So
Is there good barbecue out there?
Oh yeah, there's great barbecue. In Abilene specifically, the two best spots that have like pretty statewide recognition is Jay's and the Shed, and I would put that up against any barbecue that I've ever had. David, he has a smoker and he smokes on barbecue. And he's a huge barbecue connoisseur. A couple of years ago, we made the pilgrimage down to Snow's in Lexington,
Texas.
and
Done that
yeah,
line.
did the whole experience. Waited in the line early in the morning and did that, and that was really really good. But I wouldn't say it was worlds better than the two main places here in Abilene.
Jose and I won the raffle in the Snows line, and we got to go to the
Oh no
front of
way!
the line. Yeah. It was a huge fluke. I've never won anything before, but if I was going to win
Yeah,
something, I
we've
was okay
done
with
that.
that.
We've done the Franklin's line. We've done Terry Black's. We've done
I want to go to Burnt Bean.
Butters. I want to go to Burnt Bean too.
Yeah. It's in Seguin. I want to go to that one.
Yeah, we're big barbecue people.
We have a really good one here. We've talked about them before, but Hellberg. We had another one, but they just recently closed. They were also Texas Monthly Top 50, and they shuttered their doors.
Yeah, the guy over at Hellberg, his name's Phil, and Phil marched in the Woodlands marching band.
Oh well.
He played quads.
Yeah. He's a good guy.
Favorite barbecue side?
Oh, this is a great question. If we're going to like a Franklin situation, what even sides do we get at Franklin's? I feel like potato salad.
We always get potato salad, and we always get mac and cheese.
Yeah.
It depends on the mac and cheese. I will always lean towards that.
Yeah, I also though I do love potato salad. Potato salad is something that varies wildly depending on where you are.
Oh yeah.
But I also don't like. There are people who judge barbecue based on the sides, and I am not one of those people.
I don't like that when they're like, "Well, I went to this like very famous place and their sides were terrible." And it's like, well, I get you're paying for it. You want the good quality, but also, did you try any meat while you were there, or did you wait in line for some mac and cheese?
Yeah, no, I'm all about the potato salad too. That is the go-to. That is the most important.
There's so much range in potato
Yeah,
salad.
and sweetness and mustard versus mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been to the gristmill?
German potato
salad?
No.
The gristmill's in New Braunfels, and well, it's in Green. And it's on the river, and so they have tables that like overlook. Like it's beautiful if you've never been there, and it's a good place to stop.
Yeah, it's right next to the oldest dance hall in the state of Texas.
Green Hall.
The Green Hall.
Yeah, that's right. I thought I remember seeing that somewhere.
Since it's in the hill country, it's very German influenced. So I think it's still on their menu, German potato salad.
Yeah, I
We
believe
went
it
there
is. It's
recently.
good. It's good. If you like potato salad, that's a place to get it.
I think you said this before, Jose, but my favorite extraneous non-meat item at Franklin's is the bourbon banana hand pie.
Oh, the hand pies.
Those are like
Yeah, see, I hadn't done Franklin's yet. That's on my bucket list.
you should go. It's a fun one.
Yeah, I got smart one time, just the one time. It was when one of my really good friends, Kenny Moss, if not one of my best friends, Kenny Moss. He was getting married, so we had a guys' weekend out, and I pre-ordered I think 5 pounds of Franklin's brisket, and we picked it up and we went to a local brewery that it was a farm to table place, and we just sat at their picnic tables and ate Franklin's and had a good old time.
People don't know that you can bypass the line at Franklin's.
Yeah.
You just have to do an online order, and there's like very strict like specifications that you have to follow
2 weeks in advance.
There's like a time limit, and there's I think a minimum, but you can do that and you don't have to wait in line. You don't get to eat it there.
Yeah,
but
but I've been known to drop $200 on barbecue.
yeah, and then we have barbecue for weeks.
Yeah, barbecue brisket tacos.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not putting eggs in it because the eggs are just as much as the brisket nowadays.
I know. It's an expensive
Like,
taco.
oh my goodness gracious. Okay, so now that we've talked about your food, do you have a guilty pleasure?
I think we've hit them all already. A supreme pizza from either Pizza Hut or Domino's, and
what's your thoughts on Papa John's?
I just don't ever get it, not for any reason. If but I alternate between Domino's and Pizza. Did you know that Pizza Hut has, well, at least the one here, has caramelized onions as an option for a topping?
Oh, wow.
Domino's doesn't have that, and so like sometimes I'll go and like build a custom pizza. So I'll either just go like extreme, like the supreme, whatever supreme they have, or I'll do like no tomato sauce, but like Alfredo, like some combination of like Alfredo onion sausage or like Alfredo bacon chicken or something like that. Go with the caramelized onions if it's from Pizza Hut.
So before Wiley got big, was there a Dairy Queen there?
So that's sort of a complicated question. Wiley. First of all, this is kind of cheater, but it's like, doesn't really count. But yes, there are multiple Dairy Queens in Abilene. But Wiley it's not incorporated. It's not a city. It's not anything like that. It's just sort of like a community. And it's like half in the city limits, half outside the city limits. It's really just a school district.
That's like where I grew up, except on a much smaller scale. It's not incorporated. It's half.
Which is where?
Axtell.
Oh, okay. So is it like right outside of Waco, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
Like my address growing up is actually Waco.
Same for me. Yeah, it's a Abilene address.
Yeah.
But outside of the city limits.
Yes.
So yeah, it's kind of like that. But Wiley, like if you were to draw a boundary line around Wiley, technically no, there's no Dairy Queen in that specific location, but there are multiple Dairy Queens in Abilene.
Do you have a Blizzard order?
Yeah, I would have to go. Again, this goes back. I'm a chocolate guy. Brownie batter is always a go-to.
Good choice.
Cookie dough is always a go-to. Butterfinger is a go-to. I would probably start with, if I haven't had a Blizzard in a long time, which I haven't. That actually sounds really good. I have to get one after we're done here. Yeah, brownie batter is probably where I would start.
So John Shriver talked about in his episode about how the Mayfield Dairy Queen in Cameron, Texas is the place to be. And Jose came home today with a coupon to the Mayfield Dairy Queen.
I sure did. I
guess the band boosters in Cameron maybe passed that off to you, or John?
No, apparently some kid was handing out.
A kid was handing out Mayfield Dairy Queen coupons?
Apparently somebody from the Mayfield came by the school and dropped off like 400.
That's how you know they support
coupons.
Their community. Yeah.
Coupons.
Wow. John says that that's the place to be.
I mean,
so
it's a nice DQ.
I'll have to try it. I'll drive through Cameron occasionally.
And I asked them about the Mayfield DQ, and it's I didn't realize this, but Mayfield is its own sect.
Yeah.
Inside the DQs, and I was like, what?
Well, it's kind of like marching band in Texas because Texas Dairy Queens are different than the rest of the country's Dairy Queens. It's like you go to another state and try to order, I think, like even steak fingers, and they're like, we don't do
Look,
that.
that's what you need to do. If you ever go visit other schools outside of Texas, you should just go on a hunt for DQs.
Can you do a Dairy Queen study, please?
I'll see what I can do. Yeah,
It's like, Luke, why are you 300 pounds now?
No, we should
research.
as part of his regional exclusivity deals, it has to come with like a Dairy Queen estimator too. It's like
that's right.
this is the radius of 34 Dairy Queens within your state.
Instead of measuring things in bananas, measure distance by Dairy Queens.
In blizzards. It's
That's right.
1,000 blizzards to the next school. They can play this one.
So what's something you wish you could bring back? Like from your childhood, just something from like your youth that just like you wish was back.
You know what? So I'm a car guy, and I've always loved cars. And there were so on it used to be called TNN. I think it was like the Nashville Network when I was a kid. They would have shows on Saturday morning that were like these like shade tree mechanic type shows where these guys would go out and like work on cars and like show you how to replace the AC compressor on a 1980 Chevy truck. And I used to love waking up on Saturday mornings and watching those shows. That those shows are long gone now, and like they live on in like car lore on social media is like these shows. I used to love that like when I was like kid in high school and stuff, is waking up and watching those shows, but they're long gone now.
I remember waking up and watching like the Antique Roadshow.
Oh yeah.
In the morning? I
Yeah.
only watched it with my grandparents on like, I don't know, what Wednesday evening or something like that. That was a staple.
I had a roommate in college that we would watch that together because we couldn't afford cable. And so we'd watch that. And so we were like so invested in this. I remember working a shift at Chili's one time, and like he calls me. I'm like, yeah, bro, what's up? He's like, dude, you won't believe this. It was this table that like this, like
That's when you know.
I love there's like clips on this stuff too all over the internet that's like people are like, I know that this is worth thousands of dollars, and they're like, this is like a piece of trash
Yeah.
from somebody's
do,
home.
do you think that's where all the addiction to like Pawn Stars and like all the like that kind of stuff started?
That makes
Was
sense.
Antique Roadshow?
Antiques Roadshow was the Barry Hurt of
Yes.
started it all.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Ugh.
Man, I miss those days.
Granddaddy of them all.
Yeah, those were good times. So if it wasn't music, what would your career have been?
That's a great question. It would probably depend on the time of my life. Like prior to getting in, like making a career out of band, or like in the early years, I would have said long haul truck driver.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I loved trucks when I was a kid. Like from 5th grade on, I wanted to be a truck driver. Even like into middle school and stuff, I love, and I still love trucks. Like if I pull up next to one, or I see them on the highway, or I see one part, I love them. And just the whole like getting to see the entire United States, like something about that is like so alluring, and it sounds so fun. Now in the past 10 years or so, like let's say my business were to completely implode, which around 2020 I thought it might, and it luckily it didn't, just because of COVID. But I think I have developed an affinity for if there's a really cool product, like letting as many people as possible know, like, because I honestly like there's a lot of intentional and thoughtful marketing that goes into our brand and the website and stuff like that. And that's only because I believe in what we have. If there, like, let's say something weird happened and I had to go be a band director tomorrow, like I would use one of my shows for the fall, because I honestly believe that it would put us in the best position to succeed. You know, a lot of creative people have a hard time, you know, with the whole like, oh, I just feel like a used car salesman, you know, trying to, it's like, well, like if you know about something that is helpful, why wouldn't you want a bunch of people to know about it, whether it's yours or not? Like I really love this Mark One pen, and I want you guys to know about it. It's an amazing pen, and I love this. I want everyone to know about this because it's great. Whether I make it or not is beside the point. And it's the same thing. I think I've developed an affinity for positioning a brand and marketing something to be as helpful as possible.
That is a skill in and of itself
Yeah,
too.
I mean, and that's kind of like, I think, what we are trying to do with this podcast, because like one of the reasons why we started this and is because any podcast that's out there is either somebody from a large school who used to maybe have been at a small school but is now at a large school and telling you how to be a band director or like this or that and this and
Or at
that.
least what they do
Yeah.
and what works for them.
And or like it's somebody who is associated with a large powerhouse program. And like we talked about, like, hey, let's highlight like the stories of small school band directors and let people know that we are here and that we're out, that like we work hard and like it needs to be showcased and it needs to be spotlighted.
Well, also all of these people, and this is true no matter like what sect of band directing you're talking about, but all of these people have very interesting stories, origin stories, and just like remarkable feats of like basically strength of how they've gotten to where they are now, including Luke.
Yeah. So like the like I think if if you would have like gone full blown just a little bit earlier, Ashton Kutcher could have really helped out with your merchandise with the trucker
The
hat
trucker
thing.
hats.
You
The
actually, you can
Von
actually
Dutch.
still do that if you
I
really
could.
want to.
Luke McMillan.
Trucker
could.
hats with your logo.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now we're
Yeah,
talking.
He
I
can sell
think.
them in his all-star pawn shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Look, what's in your ear this week?
Basketball podcasts.
Ooh,
Ooh. Okay.
ooh. Well, okay, NBA or collegiate? NBA. Okay. So how do you? Okay, who's your team?
I like LeBron, so Lakers. And the Lakers just happen to pick up another generational star.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and so yeah,
it's rough.
Yeah, we don't talk about like at family gatherings like NBA basketball
Yeah.
because I'm an avid Spurs
My
fan,
sister's entire family is just like
Mavericks fans.
huge Mavs
Mhm.
fans. They canceled their Mavs like TV subscription. They're all kind of heartbroken still.
Yeah,
So.
really bad.
And then on
That's
the other side of that, Greg Popovich is
I think he's done.
yeah.
yeah.
It's really sad.
So is Wimby for the season apparently.
Yes.
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 You know, I mean, if they're not going to do anything, I mean, might as well shut them down.
I don't keep up enough with like NBA to
But,
actually
you
be
know,
informed, but
but
those are
Pop,
like
oh man,
the big pieces of information that I know right
I
now.
know. Hopefully, the Spurs will circle back, but you know, we'll never know.
Who knows?
I mean, the Lakers came out on top on that trade. So,
What's in your ears this week?
what's in my ears this week? Oh,
You're listening to a lot of bands.
yeah,
but
I'm doing a lot of band stuff. You know what? I started listening to. Oh, what musical did I start listening to this week?
I've been listening to almost exclusively Wicked because our
Oh man,
4-year-olds have now discovered Wicked and
that's great.
they're obsessed with it.
Love it.
So
I just recently started listening to more musicals, soothing to me because they can be so happy. One of my favorite musicals is The Last 5
it's a
Years.
good one. Jason
It-
Robert Brown, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just love it because of the storyline or the way the story progresses through from different viewpoints. I think that's like really fantastic. So I think that's kind of what's still in my ear this week. Other than that, it's New Orleans style jazz.
Mm.
It's very
Yeah.
specific.
That's
David loves that too. He's really into that.
yeah. Well, because we're playing Let Me Be Frank with You for our UIL program. So I've been listening to New Orleans style jazz and like second line bands on the
Oh,
way
yeah.
to work sometimes in
Yeah.
order to get
To
myself.
get you hyped up.
Yeah. Young blood brass band.
anything to make you
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
alive
Trombone
again.
shorty.
Yeah. Why couldn't do-
What would it take for you to start concentrating more on concert literature?
Um, yeah, it's just not my thing. Um, I'll leave that up to the people who really love that and who are really good at it. Um, Also, just from a business standpoint, for me, it's not smart. Um, but because I mean, like right now, I'm making the curriculum for an entire semester, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and just like imagine like what you pay for a concert band piece, and then like is if you get it published, like composers get pennies on the dollar for that, and it's just not, and it would take me so long like to do something like that. Just the the time investment for the return that I'd get back just isn't anywhere close to if I could spend that time, like probably in the time that it would take me to write a concert band piece, I could probably write 3 grade 1 marching shows. And people are coming to me looking for grade 1 marching shows. People are not coming to me looking for concert band music.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I bet
that
you'd be fantastic.
but
Oh, you could.
I'm saying people are coming to me right now looking for grade 1 marching shows. People are not coming to me right now looking for concert band pieces. So that would be almost negligent of me to focus time on something that wouldn't really see the light of day compared to what my marching shows
Mhm.
do, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and ultimately your marching shows are probably making as of current making a larger impact than what maybe some of your concert selections might do. I mean, because like so many people see marching shows,
Mm-hmm.
communities, the kids like have an attachment to it. It's not always the same thing with concert music.
Yeah.
And I think that's what like kids sometimes struggle with. Like we hear kids go like, "Oh, I love marching band," and I just kind of go through concert season to get back to marching band, and it's just trying to balance that love for both activities in our profession that's like a little difficult.
Yeah.
Let's say you had an acre of land, and this acre was full of green apples, and you were the only person within miles and miles of Gatesville, and that they could get green apples. If someone said, you should mow down half of that acre and plant wheat instead when there's wheat farmers all over the place, would that make sense?
Now,
Jose has a farm background, so this is a great
yeah,
analogy for him.
this connects to me.
This connects,
So
yeah.
no, you need to find more ways to plant more green apples. And so that's my analogy. There are tons of really great places and really great composers for concert band. There's not a lot of people who are willing to spend all of their time on small school marching band music.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
And
another
that's why the
reason.
world is thankful for you.
Yes, and that's another reason why the product that you are putting out has like really kind of stood up. Through COVID, you've been doing it since you said like the early 2010s. I mean, it's going on 15 years about.
So actually, if you look at, so that's when it sort of started ramping up. Um, I started writing my first year to teach was 0405. And then it was the next fall I wrote the show for Wiley, and then when after that, I based on my math, this season coming up is my 20th year to
Wow,
write
is there
marching
going
band
to be a
music.
party?
I
You
thought
gonna throw a
about it. I
party?
don't. Yeah,
Hey,
we'll see. Maybe
Party in the
TBA.
booth. Yeah.
I mean that's a
Party in
big
the
deal.
booth.
20 years in the business like that. That's like, woo.
Yeah, that should warrant the margarita machine. That should do it.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. Mm, Put a happy birthday hat on it or something.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, Alexa, do you have anything else?
I don't think that I do.
Luke, do you have anything else?
I think you guys covered it all.
Well, we appreciate you being on the podcast
Thanks for
a-
being here, Luke.
and
Yeah.
spreading some knowledge and giving people to an opportunity to be successful. And thank you for putting out the product that you do.
Thank you guys so much for everything that you do and cultivating and fostering an environment for small school band directors to yap and listen to others yap. And thank you guys so much for having me. It's been an honor to talk to you guys.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for listening to Band Yap. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
We out.